Chapter 609.
Ruei Wen.
Not easy to control. The little girl's lips moved slightly.
Were it not for Luo Nan's powerful mental senses, he would not have been able to hear these words clearly.
Ha!
Luo Nan didn't understand.
Not easy to control? Hovering in the air? Oh, you haven't completely learned how to fly yet. Let me lend you some strength.
Ruei Wen shook her head slightly.
The environment. It's very difficult.
Her voice grew even quieter.
It seemed that it was especially strenuous. This was absolutely not the result of not being able to fly. Rather, it was more like being bound by an invisible bird net, restricting her ability to move. Luo Nan really jumped in fright. He hurriedly turned around to see what was going on. But when he extended his hand to touch Ruei Wen, a low hum rang out. The front of the water vapor humanoid's arm was instantly smacked to pieces by the vibrating vibrations of the void. Luo Nan's out-of-body soul also received the attack due to being in an interference state. His entire body was stupefied. And Ruei Wen on the other side was like a taut and released elastic that bounced away. Her figure collapsed backward, bouncing 50 meters away in the blink of an eye.
Ruei Wen.
At this moment, Luo Nan faintly sensed that there was a problem with the void structure of the cloud world. But he didn't have time to think too much about it. The partial interference of his soul cloak was pulled back. He wanted to protect Ruei Wen, to prevent her from being injured by any means. The problem was that when his soul cloak tried to exert force by interfering with the material plane, what it touched was a wave of high-speed vibrations of the void string. The scene of the water vapor humanoid's arm collapsing apart a second ago was perfectly replicated in this moment. The pulled-back soul cloak was torn apart by the incorporeal vibrations. Not only was it unable to help Ruei Wen control her body, it instead stimulated an even greater vibration. It caused Ruei Wen to turn into a little bird that had lost control. She leaped high and low in the clouds, falling back and forth. She appeared to be particularly excited at first glance, but in reality, she wanted to return to a state of stillness. The scene was actually a bit comical, but neither Luo Nan nor Ruei Wen were able to laugh. This was like climbing onto a trampoline. If they wanted to stabilize themselves, they had to press down on the collapsing bed, or they had to wait until all of their kinetic energy was exhausted. Fortunately, Ruei Wen herself was extremely calm. She didn't resist the turbulence of the void. She only adjusted the frequency of her body and soul merging. Layer by layer, she neutralized the impact. The extent of her tumbling became smaller and smaller. Gradually, she was able to control herself. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief. He did not dare to rashly interfere with the surrounding environment and cause more trouble for Ruei Wen. He simply switched his soul cloak to a pure observational mode, probing the cause of the turbulence in the structure of the void. The structure suddenly became complicated? The space-time structure of the cloud void was different from the space-time of the Earth. Luo Nan knew this. But previously, he was not affected by it. At most, when he was considering the structure of the trans-space corridor, he would add one or two more parameters. But now, in the area around Ruei Wen, it was as if there were countless randomly vibrating spring pieces. When this layer stopped, another layer stirred up, twisting together and affecting each other, causing the clouds and the void to be thrown into disorder. There was no doubt that there was a problem with the deep space-time structure. It was only because Luo Nan had the clairvoyance method of the large coordinate system that he was more sensitive to the curvature of space-time and structure. He was able to discover the blurry and complex details within. After no less than 20 seconds, Ruei Wen's figure stabilized again. The little girl looked left and right. She moved her hands and feet lightly, and there was a clear correction in the frequency of her body and soul muddling. Only then was she certain that she had broken free from the disturbance of the space-time structure. Ruei Wen still did not dare to move even now. She floated in the middle of the flowing clouds, casting her gaze over a distance of over 100 meters. Her body was restrained. She was like a child who was aware that she had caused a great disaster. Her expression was one of rarely seen fear and pity. Luo Nan flew over in a hurry. He subconsciously extended his hand, wanting to confirm whether or not she was injured. Halfway through, he discovered that it was inappropriate. He could only caress the little girl's forehead and brush aside the messy hair on her forehead. He asked hurriedly, "Are you hurt?" Ruei Wen subconsciously avoided his gaze. It seemed that she was a bit afraid of him. This was a very rare situation. Luo Nan was worried and baffled. What's going on? Where are you hurt? There's no precision. What? This was the first time Luo Nan felt that Rui Wan and he were not on the same wavelength. If this continued, he could only touch her. Rui Wan simply buried her head under Luo Nan's gaze. Her voice became even deeper and a bit hoarse. The structure here is too complex. It's very hard to have precision in an assassination. You! Luo Nan was stupefied. Even though his soul was in an out-of-body state, he still felt an intense trembling sensation. He asked subconsciously, "Precision? You can't control it? Is it hard to display your body and soul fusion in this place?" When I jump. Rui Wen's words were incomplete, but Luo Nan still understood. Normal movement is fine. But if it's like when you killed Jin Tong, can't you jump through space? Rui Wen buried her head even lower. She didn't make another sound, but it was clear that she was tacitly agreeing. Luo Nan was really stupefied. At this moment, the heart of his main body, which was far beneath gear, was about to jump out of his chest. The scene of Rui Wen struggling to adapt to the void in the clouds came before his eyes. That's right. Luo Nan had guessed it. Rui Wen should have wanted to attempt to jump through space. But when she used the form of body and soul fusion to interact with the clouds and the void, the structure of space and time manifested an extremely astonishing complexity. It brought Rui Wen far too many disturbances. It destroyed the stable rhythm of her body and soul fusion. There was no need to say what happened next. How could it be like this? Gongqi. What about Gongqi? Gongqi also had the ability to jump through space and teleport. But why didn't he have any problems? Luo Nan pondered it over and over again. He felt that there was only one reason. Gongqi came in the form of an out-of-body state. Snake Tongue, who he often brought along with him, was the same. Perhaps the astonishingly complicated disturbances and changes like Rui Wen's would not occur if she used the form of pure energy to shuttle through space and time. Otherwise, she could be like the mushed-mouth ape. She could fly purely with her fleshly body, not involving techniques like the void shuttle. But why didn't any problems occur when he used the airdrop to transport supplies through the cloud world? Well, it was useless to think about these things. The crux of the matter was, what to do, what to do, what to do. Luo Nan's mind was a chaotic mess at this very moment. Rui Wen only appeared for 1/10 of a second or even 100th of a second in his entire plan. But she was the deciding force of victory. If a problem occurred in this segment, then all his other plans would become a joke. Luo Nan's mind was spinning in circles, but Rui Wen's whisper reached his ear. I can do it. Ha! Luo Nan wasn't able to react in time. And at this time, the water vapor forearm formed from interference trembled once more. It was suddenly bounced away by the tyrannical shockwave from Rui Wen's body. Rui Wen! Luo Nan shuddered. He subconsciously wanted to exert force, but he fell half a step behind. The little girl's figure was like a fragile bubble, vanishing between his fingers. Luo Nan understood what Rui Wen wanted to do right now, even if he was an idiot. The little girl actually wanted to forcefully practice the void shuttle. Did she really think that the structure of space and time was a trampoline? Luo Nan's thoughts flashed, and he heard an extremely subtle shattering sound come from the surrounding mist. It was completely different from the pure vibrations of the structure of space and time before. This time, his scalp really exploded. He wanted to use the soul cloak to forcefully interfere, but he was worried that it would backfire on him. He could only shout over and over again, "Stop! Rui Wen! Stop!" Rui Wen didn't listen to his command. Her figure just flashed within Luo Nan's sensing range before disappearing. Then she continued to flash and disappear in the surroundings like a flying phantom. Reality was hard to distinguish. Bas, 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 bas. Luo Nan wasn't too sure about the specific structure of the surrounding space and time. But the rumbling sound, which was continuously pushed higher and higher, struck directly at his heart. It was as if it could become a mourning sound of collapse and destruction at any moment. Luo Nan stomped his feet in anxiety, but he was simply unable to stop Rui Wen from practicing. He could only use his mental senses to lock onto Rui Wen's figure with all his might. He watched as she shuttled through the void, controlling the landing point of her figure with difficulty. Rui Wen only needed to adapt to a single structural frequency with each jump on Earth. But right now, she pierced through a layer, and then another layer followed. She was strong and weak, fast and slow, and they were even diametrically opposed. The complex, fragmented, and irregular structural pattern made one simply go crazy just by watching. The more Luonan watched, the more worried he became. He couldn't care about anything else. He shouted at Ruiwen, "Ruiwen, let's pause." "Pause, okay?" I can." Ruiwen's voice was small and trembling. She still didn't listen to Luonan's command, and her voice clearly carried subtle emotions. Luonan never expected that Ruiwen would actually have such a stubborn and rebellious side to her. He could only lock onto Ruiwen's figure and earnestly persuade her. "Let's go back. Let's go back and find some time to do systematic practice, okay? We need to do some preliminary research first. Don't forget that I'm the guide. You'll be fine, but I won't be able to if a problem occurs. We need to solve this matter together." Ruiwen responded 2 seconds later, but there was no change in her voice. "I can do it." "Ruiwen." Luonan was practically roaring. This time, what answered him was an even more intense trembling in the surrounding void. The turbulent shockwaves even traveled several hundred kilometers away, twisting the clouds and causing them to scatter and shatter. The shockwaves possessed an even greater impact force in the central region. Luonan's water vapor figure suddenly froze on the spot. It was severely warped and deformed. His consciousness seemed to have been cut into several pieces, turning upside down and in disorder. At the same time, he clearly sensed a cacophony. It was so discordant and ear-piercing. But in the next second, the vibration became smooth. It was as if someone was plucking the strings of a zither from the depths of the clouds. It was excessively deep, making it impossible to hear the true melody. But the smooth, graceful, and orderly vibration cut through the whistling clouds and astral winds. It transmitted into Luonan's soul, resonating with him. Luonan was stupefied for nearly 5 seconds before waking up as if he had just woken up from a dream. He unleashed the senses of his soul cloak to lock onto Ruiwen's position, but there was nothing under his senses. Luonan's soul was about to freeze in that instant. Chapter 6:10. The region where the oscillation occurred was located 400 meters away. It was extremely easy to distinguish whether it was through mental senses or naked eye observation. Luonan could see that the surrounding clouds were roiling and opening up in that region. No matter how fiercely the astral winds pushed the clouds, they were unable to fill up the small, irregular cavity that was 3 meters in diameter. The cavity itself was like a hole that had been forcibly cut open. There were even a few warped threads of light hanging from it. This feeling of disorder extended out from the hole. The light in the surroundings of the cavity was clearly warped, suffused with a faint scarlet light. It was a bit similar to the light that seeped through the gaps between the clouds, but it had a more substantial feeling. This formed a region that was clearly different from the surrounding void. It was indescribably strange. Luonan was a bit stupefied. His mental senses had turned into a mass of chaos after the hole was broken. It was like when he had just started out and encountered a powerful B rank. The relevant region was disturbed into a complete mess, a vast expanse of fog. Moreover, this irregular cavity was rapidly shrinking at an obvious rate. When Luonan discovered it, it was approximately 3 meters in diameter. In the 1 second it took for him to rush over, it had already shrunk by at least a quarter. And the speed at which it was shrinking was growing faster and faster. What was that? Luonan's mind was a mess. There were only questions and no answers. And at this time, his other sensing method, his sealed system, grasped the whereabouts of Ruiwen, the unfixed star. She was on the other side. She was within the hollow region. That was the best answer. The irregular cavity continued to shrink. Luonan simply didn't think of anything else. His water vapor figure flashed and he directly passed through the hole, throwing himself into the boundless and immeasurable cavity. A thought flashed through Luonan's mind the instant he entered the cavity. Was I too impulsive? The tiny stray thoughts were completely drowned out by the treacherous and oppressive scene before his eyes in the blink of an eye. The pressure within this irregular cavity was extremely astonishing. The water vapor figure formed by the interference of his soul body evaporated into nothingness the instant he entered the cavity. Luonan nimbly withdrew all forms of mental and material interference, but he soon discovered that it really was like he had crashed into a region covered in fog. Everything was a vast expanse of gray. What about the light outside? Before Luonan could get used to it, Countless twisted and complex structural fragments stimulated his mental senses. It didn't matter if they were meaningful or meaningless, understandable or incomprehensible, willing or unwilling to receive, they all transformed into an immeasurably terrifying flow of information. They flowed along the sensory channels he habitually spread out, and they were fed back one after another. They poured into his soul, filling it to the point where it was off the charts. Structural fragment? Luo Nan was only able to extract this abstract word from the chaotic and berserk information. Then he was smashed into stupefaction by the devastating impact of the information. Under this assault, Luo Nan's sensing range was compressed and compressed, refined and refined, shielded and shielded, but he was still unable to resist the pressure of the terrifying flow of information. In the blink of an eye, the range of his spiritual senses had shrunk to less than 3 meters in diameter, and it was still shrinking. He felt so dizzy that he even lost control of his out-of-body soul until he hit a seemingly gray, tangible barrier. Luo Nan woke up with a start. This gray and hazy barrier looked like a curtain that was pieced together from countless messy fabrics at first glance. It was even like a wall of fog that didn't have any substance. But when Luo Nan truly came into contact with it, he was able to sense that it was a special creation that was formed from countless complex and chaotic structures. Luo Nan's perception and thoughts had already been severely warped and compressed. He was temporarily unable to distinguish what this thing was, but he was able to sense the extremely unstable and tyrannical energy vortex above it. It was because of this inadvertent collision that a berserk energy violently surged out from this barrier of unknown origins. His soul body nearly melted within the powerful magnetic field and was consigned to eternal damnation. Even Luo Nan's soul body was stiff. He was barely able to keep his soul from scattering within the powerful and chaotic magnetic field. He slowly adjusted the direction of his thoughts and perception. The essence of the soul body's observation was mental sensing, and Luo Nan himself controlled many types of sensing, ranging from the low end to the high end. He went from constantly interfering with the material plane to pure observation that didn't interfere at all. Luo Nan fully deserved to be called the top master of mental sensing in the inner world. But here, within this gray and hazy mist, Luo Nan was able to switch between many types of observation within this extremely limited space. He piled up the results of his perception observation layer by layer, but the situation before his eyes still didn't have any essential changes. In other words, he was already lost within this gray and hazy maze of fog of unknown origin. F***ck me. Luo Nan couldn't hold back from cursing. Right now he couldn't care about anything else. He just wanted to know where Rue Wan was in such a vile environment. Was she all right? Venting his anger was a bit beneficial. Quite a bit of the fretful and fearful elements had been dumped out, and his mind became a bit more clear. More importantly, he looked within his mind and confirmed once more that Rue Wen's star was still within the sealed system. It was radiating a scorching splendor. Her specific location. Ha! She's so close. Luo Nan and Rue Wen's consciousness completed an even higher level of connection at this moment. Luo Nan subconsciously called out, Rue Wen. The dusky mist barrier in front of Luo Nan was the strange creation barrier that nearly caused Luo Nan to melt within the powerful magnetic field. It suddenly fluctuated, and its entire structure seemed to be collapsing. Its density dropped at a rapid pace, and then it collapsed and dispersed into a mass of misty smoke. Luo Nan confirmed that there was a buzzing, vibrating sound ringing out in front of him. Countless meaningful and meaningless structural fragments were being unfastened and unhooked. Some of them disintegrated without a sound. Some of them were dragging along faintly discernible electric flames. They were even like blades grinding against each other. The area in front of him was still dangerous enough to make one shiver with fear. But there was a slender figure in the depths of the gray and hazy mist, going from blurry to clear. She gradually approached until she arrived in front of him. Rue Wen. Luo Nan instinctively reached out to touch her, but he forgot that his water vapor human form had already collapsed. He touched nothing in an instant. In the end, Rue Wen still stopped incomparably real before his eyes. Her cheeks were fine, but the clothes on her shoulders, chest, waist, legs, and other areas were inexplicably torn. Especially the area above her left knee. There was a piece of cloth that simply disappeared, revealing the fine white and powerful muscles of her leg. Rue Wen seemed to know that she had gotten herself into trouble. She buried her head even deeper. Only now did Luo Nan discover that it was his turn to get angry when he saw her in this state. But in this mist maze where danger lurked on every side, he saw Ruiwen standing alive and well before him. There was no emotion that could compare to the joy of reunion. So he was completely unable to find the dignity of a parent. He could only ask over and over again, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Ruiwen shook her head almost imperceptibly. Then she whispered, "It's too deep. I can't reach it." Chapter 6:11. There are many layers here. They affect each other. And then? Traveling through space will cause interference. The resonance frequency must form a concordant interval in order to eliminate it. Concordant interval? Luo Nan and Ruiwen spent quite a bit of effort to communicate. The little girl's ability to express herself was a bit problematic. Her vocabulary was limited. It was probably because she had recently learned the guitar from Moya. She even interspersed proper terms from the field of music. In the end, Luo Nan had a superficial understanding of music theory. He knew that the concordant interval was a musical interval that sounded pleasing to the ear. It was a musical relationship that was relatively harmonious in the auditory impression. Ruiwen made an analogy. For the time being, Luo Nan didn't know whether it was appropriate or not. He understood the gist of it. You're saying that the resonance frequency of your body and soul fusion must form a harmonious relationship with the multi-layered structure of space and time. Just like the chord of the guitar in order to guarantee precision? Ruiwen furrowed her eyebrows. It's not enough. Why? Hold on. Let me guess. You just said that it's too deep. I can't reach it. Are you saying that there are too many layers of the structure of space and time? It's like a guitar doesn't just have 6 strings, but 16, 17, or even more. It's super complicated to completely control it. It's impossible to play a tune? The metaphors of the two could be said to be a mess, but this kind of communication method was actually quite useful. Ruiwen gaped. Perhaps she lacked confidence in her ability to express herself. In the end, she just nodded her head lightly, indicating that this was what she meant. Excellent. Excellent. Luo Nan's doubts were resolved. Plus, Ruiwen was perfectly fine before his eyes. Luo Nan felt much more at ease. His mind spun all the more nimble, and his train of thought became clearer. In the current situation, he needed to ensure that he and Ruiwen were safe and sound. He needed to determine where in the world this misty labyrinth was. He also needed to figure out why such a situation would appear in the cloud world. The normal structure of space and time had yet to be penetrated. There was a layer of logic hidden within. It could be seen that the cloud world itself was abnormal. The cloud world. Luo Nan wasn't the least bit surprised to encounter this scene. He discovered early on that the cloud world was completely different from the local space and time of Earth. The first stop of the Soul Cloak's expansion was the cloud world, half a month ahead of Earth. But now, the Soul Cloak was about to cover the entire Earth, while the cloud world had yet to be touched. In Luo Nan's understanding, the cloud world was like an infinite replication of the misty scene. It formed an incomparably vast maze. Now, although he had stumbled into another fog maze and felt that it was also full of danger, compared to the surface phenomenon that he could not figure out at all, there seemed to be more opportunities and starting points for him to explore. Ruiwen, do what you did just now. Ruiwen was becoming more and more obedient right now. She would do whatever Luo Nan said. Under Luo Nan's command, she displayed her technique once more. It was as if she was playing a guitar. She gently plucked at the incorporeal chords in the void, clearing a temporary passageway within the dusky mist. The essence of what the little girl was doing was still based on the foundation of body and soul. She resonated with the structure of the void and achieved the unity of the inside and the outside. However, during this process, she adopted a more advanced and exquisite technique. She found fragments that could resonate harmoniously in space-time structures of different frequencies and avoided the relevant conflicts. Thus, she opened up a passage in the complicated structure environment. Unfortunately, the passage was drowned out by the surrounding fog, in less than 2 or 3 breaths. Well done. Luo Nan didn't care how long the passage lasted or where it led. Instead, he seized the opportunity to fiercely praise Ruiwen. No matter what, he had to pull the little girl out of her depressed and remorseful mood first. Moreover, Ruiwen's miraculous methods really did give Luo Nan a good entry point. It also gave him a gap to catch his breath.
Luo Nan had yet to condense his water vapor human form under the ever-present pressure of the misty maze. He could only barely maintain the narrow range of his mental senses. This lasted until Ruewen plucked the cords in the mist before his eyes dispersed. The surrounding pressure clearly loosened and dropped. Luo Nan finally found an opportunity. He shouted to himself, "I." This "I" was not the "I" from before. The form, sound, and meaning didn't match. But Luo Nan's goal was clear. He borrowed this chance to visualize the mysterious "I" character. His mind naturally congregated. Then he used the pure observation mode to comb and adjust his mental senses anew. He re-established the large coordinate system. He slowly but surely seeped into the impermanent gathering and scattering mist. He recalled his previous experiences, including today's observations and the results of his earlier observations. He formed a basic judgment regarding the logic and mysteries of the misty maze and even the cloud world. This place is the accumulation of many configuration fragments. Ruewen looked at him attentively. The distance between the mental plane and the material plane did not affect her clairvoyance. She was like a well-behaved elementary school student, earnestly listening to her teacher's lecture. Luo Nan felt a bit ashamed. He had only been able to strip away the clues within by relying on Ruewen's miraculous methods. What he was doing right now was nothing more than a theoretical derivation and conclusion. Luo Nan continued to observe the changes in the misty maze, especially the dissociation, friction, and reconstruction of those shattered structures in the depths of the mist. These were the configuration fragments he speculated about. They were like countless catkins floating in the air. They came and went with the wind, hugging together randomly to form all sorts of hairy balls. It was just that the internal structure mechanism was hundreds of millions of times more complex. Due to its complexity, a portion of this random structure process was successful. Perhaps it was meaningful. There was also a considerable portion that failed. Perhaps it was meaningless. But regardless of whether these structures were meaningful or meaningless, they all seemed to revolve and pile up under some sort of mechanism. They formed a boundless misty environment of varying thicknesses and densities. Even the density was different. Then this complex maze was constructed. And if one were to push a layer deeper, the misty maze is like this. Perhaps the cloud world outside is like this as well. It's just that its operations are more concealed. If it weren't for your fleshly body traveling through the void and causing a huge commotion, you wouldn't have been able to see through this layer of cover. I couldn't see through it. Gongqi also couldn't see through it. Ruewen stared fixedly at him. Her appearance made Luo Nan want to reach out and stroke her hair. Unfortunately, he was unable to do so for the time being. He could only continue to reason. In this way we can make a hypothesis. This misty maze is an even deeper region of the cloud world. If the cloud world is a display, a projector, an output that is like a scene between reality and fantasy, then this place might be the mainframe. The wiring and whatnot looks extremely messy, but if we follow the clues and search, we will always find the CPU. Am I right? Ruewen was silent. Her brows were even slightly furrowed. It seemed that she was doing her best to understand and ponder. She looked extremely cute. Chapter 6:12. There's something? It's only normal to have something. Since this misty labyrinth was the host, possessing its own operating laws and rules, then it was normal to have a CPU hidden deep within. However, Luo Nan was unable to guess what this CPU looked like. He asked Ruewen, but he did not receive an accurate answer. Ruewen just shook her head. I can't see it. It's normal that you can't see it. Luo Nan's large coordinate system was doing its best to expand its range, but its progress was still slow. It had not expanded beyond 10 meters to this day. This was the law of order of the misty labyrinth. It suppressed the external order frame with Luo Nan at its core. Luo Nan was mentally prepared for this. He just asked Ruewen in passing, "How far can you see?" Ruewen did not immediately respond. Instead, she furrowed her brows once more. It seemed that this simple answer exceeded the scope of her ability to express herself. Yes. Is the environment very complicated? Luo Nan was a bit surprised at first, but he soon reacted. Ruewen's ability to express herself was a bit bad, but she certainly had no problems with basic concepts like length and distance. The misty labyrinth's complexity was certainly beyond imagination for her to be able to make things difficult for him. Sure enough, Ruewen quickly nodded. Oh, the eyes are the most important prerequisite. Ever since Luo Nan entered the inner world, he had always used his mental senses first. He had the advantage of information, and he had been successful in every endeavor. Now that he was affected, he would be out of sorts. His thoughts naturally turned in this direction. Of course, the reason why he was thinking this way was because he already had a decision in mind. Luo Nan saw that Ruewen did not quite understand his meaning, so he explained the current situation of the large coordinate system being suppressed. He also took the opportunity to explain how he should deal with it. Luo Nan would feel that he had lost out if he did not properly utilize such an outstanding listener. It's not enough to rely solely on the large coordinate system to solve this problem. The basic mode of operation of my large coordinate system is to use my own order frame as the standard. I use my own extraordinary domain to forcefully replace the natural order of other spacetime structures. It's fine if it's purely observation. It's nothing more than a label conversion. But if I carry out mental and material interference, it's the same as going head-on against the order of the entire spacetime structure. However, in actual operation, we can use more advanced and ingenious methods to bypass this obstacle. Do you know what that method is? Luo Nan was about to announce the answer, but he didn't expect Ruewen to actually open her mouth and answer after a short period of thought. Coupling. Oh, right. Luo Nan was both happy and surprised. How did you guess? You said it before. I said it before? Luo Nan's mind spun a few times. He finally remembered that he had given Ruewen a proper introduction to the subtleties of coupling theory before he entered the cloud world. At that time, he was only half venting and did not expect Ruewen to fully understand. However, it seemed that Ruewen already had a basic understanding of coupling theory. 1-1 how? He 1-1 yang. 1-1-1-1-1 God. 1-1-1-1-1 not 2-1-1. 1-1-1-1-1-1 like. It was based on a controllable order frame. Through effective design, it would form a coupling with multiple other order frames to form a set of gears to guide the direction of power. To put it simply, it's using order to guide order. According to the virtual brain system's explanation, this is a type of basic yet high-end configuration thinking. Luo Nan naturally entered a state of unceasing torrent when he spoke about this aspect of theory. At this time, he wasn't just giving Ruewen a lecture or showing off. Instead, he was seizing the opportunity to organize his thoughts. The laws of order in this misty maze are suppressing me greatly. But we have to see that it is still very straightforward, compared to the cloud world outside and the local spacetime on Earth. Most of its pressure is on the surface. The interference and pressure of the misty maze was definitely far above the cloud world and the local spacetime. But from another perspective, purely using the controllability of the rules of order as the standard, the corresponding difficulty coefficient should be arranged like this from top to bottom. Local spacetime, cloud world, mist maze based on Luo Nan's current insight and knowledge. The structure of the local spacetime where Earth was located was established on the basis of organic unity between the extremely large macroscopic and the extremely small microscopic. Simply speaking, the intrinsic structure had already exceeded the scope of Luo Nan's perception. If it weren't for the magical effects of the mysterious character I, in addition to the warping of the cloud world and local spacetime, Luo Nan might not have been able to produce an intuitive understanding of the corresponding structure. What's more, the structure of local spacetime was purely based on matter. It formed its own laws and rules. The position of extraordinary power was extremely awkward. Most of the time, Luo Nan was in a predicament of being like a mouse pulling a tortoise with nowhere to start. The cloud world was a bit better. At the very least, the spacetime structure had faintly discernible traces of processing. It gave one the bare minimum of imagination. But if one really wanted to start, one would know just by looking at Gong Qi's fate. In comparison, the mist maze displayed a scene. The mechanism and structure of the mist gathering and dispersing was admittedly exquisite and extraordinary, but the majority of its scale was still within the scope of Luo Nan's observation. The dust-like structure fragments clearly had a very close relationship with the CPU in the depths of the structure. This gave Luo Nan a very good entry point. Consider the self. Consider the environment. Consider the framework of compromise between the self and the environment. Whether it's in formatting theory, configuration theory. Fine, even on the level of traditional philosophy, this is one of the most essential rules. The difference lies in the specific implementation methods and methods. I've put quite a bit of effort into this recently. Luo Nan was still chattering on endlessly. He talked about how he would use coupling theory to build a fog lamp that was more suitable for long-distance observation on top of the soul cloak. Don't blame him for chattering. The surrounding mist that gathered and dispersed irregularly, as well as the configuration fragments that formed the mist, revealed a myriad of shapes and forms. They gave him far too much stimulation and inspiration. Even though a considerable portion of these dust-like configuration fragments no longer possessed any structural significance, they still had an enormous base to support them. They still displayed astonishing diversity. Just from the range of 10 meters that Luo Nan was currently able to observe, a conservative estimate was that the number of flying, gathered, and dispersed configuration fragments would exceed 100 million. Even if the vast majority of them were destroyed, the remaining ones could be divided into at least 10 major categories according to the discrimination theory of the virtual brain system. There were 300 to 400 specific structures, and there were countless variations. The more Luo Nan probed, the more he couldn't extricate himself. For a beginner like him, this was the most extensive and most vivid living example. He could verify, he could practice, and he could temper himself as a reference. With these examples, the concise and dry theoretical descriptions on the user's manual seemed to come alive. They could manifest on the plane of reality at any time. Chapter 6:13.
Bang, bang, bang.
The dull thuds were mixed with the man's rapid breathing. The inside of his lungs and the outside of his sweat were both evaporating and burning violently. Phew, phew, the human body has always been a clumsy assemblage, heh? The continuous heavy punches landed on the thick boxer target. Not only were they hitting the thick material, but they were also colliding with the aura of the young expert behind him, which was as heavy as a mountain. The rebounding force was almost suffocating. However, Black Wolf still wanted to speak. In the noisy environment, his voice was unconsciously getting louder, and his emotions became more and more agitated. Decades of cutting-edge research. Phew, it all proves this point. From the human body structure to genetic inheritance. Phew, you're a completely illogical ghost.
Like. Bang, bang, bang.
Black Wolf's punches were faster and fiercer than the one before. His clash with the boxer target also became more intense. His exchange with his sparring partner was already close to a confrontation. The two of them changed their footwork and moved their bodies, exceeding the standard of boxing champions in the normal world. The sparring partner's head blocked behind the boxer target and replied in a muffled voice, "The physical side is not weaker than the mental side." Upper limit. Upper limit. Black Wolf jumped to attack, but he grimaced because of the pain in his spine. His punches were a little weaker, but his voice was getting louder and louder. How can a lousy foundation build a skyscraper? It's still a barbaric growth period. In the near future, phew you. Again. Enough, brother Black Wolf. I've had enough for today. The sparring partner could not take it anymore, not with his fists, but with his emotions. He jumped back, indicating that he should rest for a while. Black Wolf's bare upper body was already steaming. Beads of sweat hung on his eyelids. He bent over and gasped for breath. He only raised his eyelids and looked at the young sparring partner in front of him who was stronger than him. Phew, Lei. Do you think that I look down on the physical side while I'm tired like a dog here? My words and actions don't match?
Ah, no such thing.
Shui Lei took off the boxer target and wiped the sweat on his face. Actually, our dojo master said something similar.
Oh?
Shui Lei smiled. Dojo master, you said that there is a limit to the human body, and you want me to come into contact with the exoskeleton technology to fully connect with the times, so I came to this training center? Your dojo owner runs a dojo, right? Not bad. Not only are you adept at imparting martial arts, you also have such a way of thinking. Black Wolf also threw down his boxing gloves and ended the final practice. He got off the ring with Shui Lei. Actually, in ancient times, many traditional philosophies already had this understanding. Just like in Buddhism, it is said that the human body is a stinky skin bag. Isn't there a saying that goes, "Fill up the stinky skin bag all day long. When will the day come for transcendence and reach the shore?" For us cultivators, we mainly use it to overcome disasters and temper our minds. It's fine as long as it's enough. We can't hang on to this tree forever. If there's a chance, we can totally find another way. Shui Lei did not know how to respond. Black Wolf grinned, revealing his sharp canine teeth. At our level, Immortal souls are no longer empty talk. It's still the same saying, the physical body is only the foundation for germination, not a cage to trap. So, I'm very open-minded now. When my injuries are more or less healed, I'll apply for a deep physical transformation to improve the physical body and the environment for my soul. Or I should thank you. You're my benefactor who woke me up. No. Shuelei was dizzy when a phone call came in. He secretly sighed and picked it up without even looking. But in the next moment, he suddenly froze on the spot and straightened his back even more. Auntie Luo. Oh, I'm not with Nanster right now. It's fine. It's definitely fine. Rue-1 is also very familiar with them. It's definitely. I know she's with Nanster. Yes, don't worry. It's definitely fine. The phone call was quickly hung up. In just a few short sentences, Shuelei's body was already drenched in sweat from his training. He subconsciously shivered. Oh my God. Black Wolf was a little puzzled. What's wrong? An elder is asking me about something. Wait a moment. Another phone call came in. This time, Shuelei glanced at it. It was Xie Junping. Brother Ping, Auntie Luo also called you? No wonder. Don't use me as an excuse. How would I know where Rue-1 went? That girl comes and goes like a ghost. Did she order breakfast from Sister Cat Eyes this morning? Then she must have gone to Gear. Okay, Gear is full of people right now. It's not convenient for Brother Qin and the others. I'll go over. Did you just come out from the orphanage? How about you take a turn and pick me up? I'm at the Exoskeleton Training Center in Trigate District. Okay, thanks a lot. I'll wait for you at the main entrance. After talking for a while, Shuelei finally straightened out the situation. He turned his head and said, Brother Black Wolf, you see, I have something to do over here. Okay, you go. I'm almost done here. We'll talk later. Black Wolf was also smiling. His thin face was rather sunny. Shuelei replied with a smile and took his leave. He hastily took a shower and took the free nutritious meal from the training center. He waited by the side of the road while eating. A few minutes later, he saw Xie Junping's phantom flying car drive over. The two were familiar with each other, so Shuelei didn't regard himself as an outsider. He stuffed the nutritious meal into his mouth, puffed his cheeks, and helped open the door and get on the car. It was already nighttime by now. People were coming out from the training center one after another. Among them was Black Wolf's thin, tough, and valiant figure. The two called out to Black Wolf. Someone drove over to pick him up. They waited for him to get on the car and Xie Junping drove away. Xie Junping casually asked, Who was that? Shuelei swallowed the nutritious meal and said, A fellow member of the society. He came here for rehabilitation. In the past. How do I put it? It was pretty complicated. To put it simply, I was the main culprit who made him come here for rehabilitation. Ha! It was at the end of September when the human-faced arachnid disaster happened. Brother Black Wolf was a member of the operation team. He was careless and was controlled by a human-faced arachnid. It attacked Nanster and I just happened to run into him. Shuelei gave a general explanation of the situation at the time. Black Wolf was the most unlucky member of the operation team. His spine had been injured by Shuelei in the fight in the elevator. He had only recently recovered and was undergoing rehabilitation. Shuelei happened to follow the society's introduction and went to this training center to do exoskeleton training. The two sides met. Oh, you beat him up like this. Wouldn't I take the opportunity to beat you to death? I was in a hurry to save him. Besides, Brother Black Wolf is quite magnanimous. He's a bit. Sigh. What's wrong? Nothing. I just wanted to ask, Brother Ping, what do you think about the relationship between body and soul when you study and cultivate with Dean Wan? Forget it. It's useless to ask. Xie Junping laughed. Under the influence of Dean Wan, the order of creators he belonged to could be said to be the most staunch materialist. There was no place for pure spiritual bodies such as souls. Of course, Xie Junping had not reached this level yet. He could only be regarded as a practical person. As long as he could cultivate extraordinary power, he had no other desires. Seeing that the topic was drifting toward cultivation, Xie Junping glanced at the rearview mirror and said, The one behind, Black Wolf, right? His car has been following behind. Are you sure? We, the Order of Creators, must maintain a high sensitivity to all specific material structures. This car has been following us since we left the training center, and the distance hasn't changed. Could it be that Black Wolf wants to find a place to beat you up? Shuelei laughed. Don't think too much. There's only one main road back to the city in the Trigate district. We're not going back to the city. We're going to Acumen College. We've already switched to 2 city highways in the middle, and it's still following us. Although that was what they said, neither of them took it seriously. What happened behind them seemed to be fair and aboveboard. Maybe it was just a coincidence? But half an hour later, they arrived at Acumen College and entered the underground parking area. Looking at the flying car behind them, they couldn't help but look at each other. Xie Junping gasped. He's not really here for revenge, right? Can I get out of here first? As they spoke, the car behind them pulled up. The window on one side opened, and Black Wolf waved at them. Lei, you're here too? Isn't it the weekend today? Shuelei greeted them from behind Xie Junping. He couldn't help but be surprised. Brother Black Wolf, you guys are... Black Wolf grinned. Senior brother and I took a private job from the Starry Sky Club, so we came over to take care of it. The senior brother Black Wolf spoke of was the person sitting in the driver's seat. He looked to be middle-aged. His hair was slightly gray, and he gave off a sense of vicissitudes. Apart from that, there were almost no other striking features. While Hei Lang was talking about himself, he nodded to Shui and Xie in acknowledgement. He looked calm and reserved, not the kind of person who liked to socialize. Everyone had things to do, so they didn't say much. They parked their cars and parted ways. Xie Junping and Shuelei took the streetcar. The exit was near the South Bank Auditorium, so they could only walk for the rest of the journey. They hadn't even taken a few steps on the bridge when they heard a noise in the sky. Lights gathered and projected into the forest. It was a light transport plane that could take off and land vertically. It was specially used to transport equipment and supplies. Looking at the position where the transport plane was hovering, Shuelei gasped. What's with this big scene? I have too much money to burn. Xie Junping was like an extreme hater of the rich, drawing Shuelei's sidelong glance. Xie Junping continued to smirk. The more I work, the more I find these silk pants to be an eyesore. F***CK. It wasn't easy to build up this place, and now it's turned into a construction site. Xie Junping's feelings for gear could be said to be second only to Luo Nan's. This building had been cleaned and renovated twice, and he had been the one to do it each time. He hadn't even paid this much attention to his own house. Xie Junping couldn't help but feel uncomfortable seeing the fruits of his labor change beyond recognition. He mumbled to himself as he walked inside. He walked from the forest path to the small plaza in front of him. He was just about to enter the lobby when a shadow suddenly leaped past his feet, bringing with it a gust of wind. Chapter 6:14. The shadow suddenly came to an abrupt stop, and its plump body slid on the ground, leaving a long wet mark. In the next second Jerry, the muskrat that had already become Rui Wen's pet, plunged over and hugged Xie Junping's trousers with quite a bit of strength. Ouch, my pants, my shoes. No one knew where Jerry came from, but the fur on his body was half dry and half wet. He swung his long tail, causing the ground to crackle. He looked anxious and restless. Xie Junping said that he disliked it, but if he was really angry at it, he wouldn't have called it sun. He and Jerry could be said to have gotten to know each other through a fight. Back then, they had fought for several days and he hated this muskrat to the core. But later, this little thing was nowhere to be found. When it appeared again, it had already transformed into Rui Wen's pet. This was how people felt. The same target, but when looked at from a different perspective, the original torturous became nimble. The problem was that Jerry was quite aloof and cold. He was someone who would look at the dishes on a plate. Aside from beauties like Rui Wen, Luo Nan, and Cat Eyes, he loved to ignore everyone else. It was unprecedented for him to look for someone to back him up so impatiently. Xie Junping was amused. Hee, you only think of me when there's something. Who provoked my son? While he was playing with it, an elevator went down to the lobby. A group of people went out and happened to meet Xie Junping and the others. The one in the lead was young and had a baby face. However, his eyes were filled with sharpness. When he saw Xie Junping, his attitude was subtle. "Senior Xie, are you here to supervise again?" Xie Junping looked up and smiled, then lied through his teeth. "Brother Oh, it's not like that. I'm just taking a walk to digest my food." The younger brother Oh was au Quebec. He had just entered his first year of university, but he was already a senior figure in the Mysterious Arts Research Society. He was also a technical expert in the society, and he was quite accomplished in the research of the mysterious arts. Some time ago, the Mystical Research Society was in a mess. The former president, Du Yong, had resigned, and the team was restructured. OK had become the youngest vice president. Especially after the successful capital injection of LRCF, in a series of equity changes, his family's company became one of the top 5 major shareholders of the club. With this capital, this young man's voice in the club was very powerful. No one liked to be told what to do, especially by young and vigorous people. OK had always been rude to Xie Junping did not expect to be on good terms with everyone. Furthermore, the person in front of him was 5 to 6 years younger than him. There was no need for him to go against her forcefully. Otherwise, he would be seen as a bully. He casually replied, then smiled and asked, "Shall we call it a day?" The corner of OK's mouth twitched. On the contrary, everyone is burning the midnight oil. Xie Junping was quite surprised. "Is it that urgent?" OK ignored him and walked straight out. The group of people behind him also followed him, looking rather imposing. It was a good thing that Xie Junping was in Acumen College. He had scoundrels and dogs everywhere. He casually stopped the person behind him. "Old Hai, what's going on?" Old Hai, who had been stopped, was someone who knew how to curry favor. His position in the Mystic Arts Research Society was neither high nor low, and he was also one of Xie Junping's eyes and ears. He immediately said, "It's very urgent. They say that they want to smash all the ice on the lake tonight." Lake. Xie Junping and Xue Lei didn't understand. OK, who had been in front, was very dissatisfied with his own subordinate and an outsider in private. He turned his head and retorted, "Senior Xie, this has nothing to do with who you're supervising, right?" Xie Junping was not angry when he said this, but Jerry, who was under his feet, became even more irritable. It bared its teeth at OK and even let out a strange squeak. OK glanced at the little thing. "It's freezing outside. Senior, you should stay in the house and see if there are any areas that violate the rules. When you have time, you can give your pet a vaccine. Also, carry it far away so that it doesn't get eaten by the cat." With that, he walked out of the hall with large strides. Xie Junping was still not angry. Instead, he vaguely grasped a certain important point. At that moment, he didn't care about Jerry's half-wet fur. He bent down and reached out to carry the chubby little fellow in his arms. He chased after her with a cheeky smile. "With my son's skills, 1 or 2 stray cats are nothing. Speaking of which, old brother O, are you going to break the ice on the opposite side of the lake? Are you preparing to go winter swimming?" Humph. OK did not want to answer such a stupid question. In the end, old Hai gave the answer. "It just so happens to be the other way around. The society wants to hold a flame ritual." Lighting a fire? Lighting a fire on water? Xie Junping's eyelids twitched. He and Xue Lei glanced at each other. At the same time, they thought of the withered tree sandbar that stood alone in the middle of the lake. Xue Lei sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but open his mouth to ask, but Xie Junping gave him a meaningful glance. He wanted him to first confirm Luo Nan and Ru Wen's state. Xie Junping continued to ask OK with a thick face. "Brother O, the water fire is quite innovative. But lighting a fire in the middle of a jungle is a bit of a procedural problem. You don't mind having a discussion, right?" OK shot him a cold glance. He wanted to curse, but he still remembered Xie Junping's position in the student council. The corner of his mouth twitched. "OK. It just so happens that a professional team has arrived. We don't need to go through the procedures again." At this time, there were already people coming down from the transport aircraft. They unloaded the equipment and made the preliminary preparations. It looked like it was indeed as OK said. It was a professional team. The Mystical Research Society was willing to pay the capital. They really did have the capital. Xie Junping shot them a glance and chuckled. "Fine. Then we'll have a discussion on the spot. Actually, there was no need for a formal discussion. Xie Junping and his gang of scoundrels could get a general idea of what was going on. Old Hai, are you guys playing with water turning into oil? Old Hai was stuck in the middle, feeling quite awkward. He could only chuckle. It's the reconstruction and deduction of a mysterious ritual. Mysterious ritual? Shuelei was even more surprised. OK was really impatient. Senior Xie, you're a supervisor. There's no need to include the details of our society's activities, right? Everyone has a curious heart. Xie Junping was still laughing. Old Hai, who was familiar with Xie Junping, was shocked by his shamelessness. To put it bluntly, this was the result of him getting to know Luo Nan and following Dean Wan to train. Ever since he experienced the magnificence and wonders of the inner world, he looked at the little problems in a corner of Acumen College. His attitude was completely different. In the end, OK was still young. He was extremely annoyed by Xie Junping's shameless pestering, but he couldn't find a reason to turn hostile. He simply turned his head and ignored Xie Junping. At this time, Old Hai could only continue to be responsible for explaining. We want to reconstruct and reproduce the elusive secret ritual. You've heard of this, right? So what if you look down on me? Don't forget, my best friend is a member of your society. Our school's student council has always been concerned about the direction of the society's activities. Xie Junping had already completed his search at the speed of light as he spoke. The elusive secret ritual was one of the most famous and ancient mysterious rituals of the West. Some people say that it originated in the 19th century BC. It was fused with religious mythology during the ancient Greek era to obtain a stronger vitality. Through the stimulation of the search results, Xie Junping had a faint impression of it. There was an introduction to it in the History of Religion course. Luo Nan seemed to have mentioned it some time ago. Old Hai continued to explain. He said that the Mystic Arts Research Society was preparing to reproduce this mysterious ritual in gear on the North Bank. Of course, they weren't just copying it. In fact, the details of this ritual had long since been buried in the dust of history. If they wanted to reproduce it, they could only reconstruct it creatively. Oh! Great ambition. Xie Junping expressed his admiration out of politeness. Old Hai cast a glance forward and saw that OK had walked far away. He giggled and spoke in a strange tone. Yeah. Under the stimulation of male hormones, it's strong and straight. Huh. Old Hai smiled mysteriously. Speaking of which, Director Xie, you're no longer on the same level as us Ivory Tower people. This year, will there be? He drew a circle around the bracelet on his wrist. Those who understood this hint would understand it. Those who didn't would be confused. Fortunately, Xie Junping was a first-rate veteran. He immediately raised his eyebrows. A banquet. Old Hai gave him a thumbs up. They're getting better and better at fooling little kids. Only after saying this did he remember that there were even younger participants this year. It was Xie Junping himself who, after making a difficult decision, refused the opportunity to participate in the banquet for the first time in his life. This was because his cultivation was at a critical juncture. He could foresee a qualitative change in his life not too far away. Those excessively straightforward conquest games no longer possessed a strong attraction. He would not tell Old Hai such words. He only revealed a smile. Old Hai was not surprised at all. He took the opportunity to tell him what he had heard. I heard that this year, it's also the theme of mysticism. Many people in our circle have won the lottery. Hee. What does this have to do with your reconstruction of the elusive ritual? It has a lot to do with it. Vice President O is preparing for this. He wants to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Did he go in the wrong direction? With the way things are over there, mysticism is just a gimmick. At the end of the day, it's still a matter of men and women. Old Hai chuckled. That should be right. I heard that he has already invited President Tang to be his female companion. This is the stepping stone. President Tang? Tangy? Xie Junping was really shocked. Damn. They're almost 10 years apart. This kid is into this kind of thing? Could it be true love? There's still a backup. Our hibiscus flower. Fei Jin? Isn't she about to graduate? I understand. It's indeed true love. He had just come of age and was already in such a hurry to expose his taste. This kid was still immature. In comparison, the other younger one seemed to be about the same. He was overthinking. I still have to sort out the logic here. The banquet isn't going to be held here. Old Hai was surprised. You don't know? This year's main venue is set to be at Cloud City Water Village. A bunch of lively people are preparing to freeload on the periphery. Xie Junping had already let the cat out of the bag. Old Hai did not think too much about it. He was just envious. This is a university town. Is there a better place to party and hunt? We can open up a second battlefield at any time. At that time, the entire Pingjiang district will be covered. This group of scum is getting more and more arrogant. Xie Junping spat. His heart was itching. Fortunately, he immediately remembered Dean Wan's teachings. He recited the words material nature is supreme to settle his mind. Chapter 6:15. Before Xie Junping could figure out what was going on, Jerry struggled to jump out from his arms. It slithered down to the ground like a wisp of smoke. It crossed the dense barrier of trees with a few steps and leaped onto the surface of the lake. It didn't care about the different layers of ice on the surface of the lake. It dashed towards the center of the lake. Son! Jerry! Xie Junping didn't manage to catch it, nor did he call it back. He just watched helplessly as the muskrat disappeared into the darkness. Everyone is very busy. Senior Xie, can't you go somewhere else to walk your pet? OK's tone was becoming more and more unkind. Young people always cared more about other people's evaluations. OK didn't hear the conversation between Xie Junping and Old Hai clearly, but he subconsciously felt that it wasn't anything good. He just wanted this eyesore to get the hell out of here. The problem was that no matter how mischievous Xie Junping was and how humble he was, Xie Junping wasn't afraid of Quebec. Xie Junping acted as if he hadn't heard anything and walked 2 steps forward to the lakeside. He stared blankly at the surging lake water between the lakeside and the cracked layer of ice. Jerry, this little thing. What in the world was going on? There was also the tremor just now. At first he thought it was an earthquake, but then he felt that it wasn't like it. This was because the source of the tremor was too shallow and too close from the perspective of physical perception. After a rough calculation of the location, it seemed like Luo Nan's worrisome. Xie Junping let his imagination run wild by the lakeside. OK didn't get a response, so his mood worsened. Unfortunately, he couldn't really shed all pretense of cordiality. He could only suppress his anger and give an order to the captain of the engineering team beside him. The de-icing operation and the subsequent anti-freezing measures are your specialties. It's your job. However, we have very high requirements for the operation. All operations must conform to our pre-designed ideas. It was hard for him to not be in a good mood. However, the engineering captain knew that this was a big client. Anything could be discussed if there was money to be made. He chuckled in response. This afternoon, the engineering team used integrated mapping equipment to complete the topography of the lake area. They had also received the Mystic Arts Research Society's blueprints. They pulled them out and communicated with OK and the others on a few specific issues. Xie Junping saw this scene. This was what he wanted to know. He rushed over to take a look. There were rigorous and neat engineering drawings, and there were also mysterious magic arrays. If it were a month ago, Xie Junping would have seen his brain explode when he was faced with the structures and symbols of mysticism that represented special images. But right now, under the influence of Dean Wan's fundamental studies of matter properties, even if he did not know much about some of the special symbols, he could basically guess 60 to 70% of them by observing their structure and direction. Of course, this was also because a group of amateurs had limited skills. As he watched, Xie Junping's expression became serious. Soon, a smile appeared on his face and he moved closer to Quebec, younger O. OK was so annoyed that he didn't even bother to show basic courtesy. He gritted his teeth and said, "Do you even want to check the construction qualification?" No need, no need. The Mystical Research Society had always been dependable. Actually, during this period of time, I've also begun to be interested in mysticism. I've also done some research in private. OK looked at him with a gaze that said, "Are you kidding me?" Xie Junping winked at him and slid his hand on the projection of the design drawings. From the design drawings, this is a combination of magic arrays. It's not complete enough. It might be a problem with the level. Seeing OK sneer, Xie Junping immediately continued. But it might also be because it needs to be coordinated with a mysterious ritual in time. If it can really be activated, I think that the extraordinary... Ahem, the direction of magic power should be from the four sides of the lake to the center of the lake. The final destination is the withered tree sandbank. Am I right? OK subconsciously looked at Old Hai, who had shrunk back. He told you? Xie Junping laughed and continued to communicate. In terms of the overall structure of this set of drawings, does it lack a point of qualitative change? This time, OK was really shocked. You really know? No, I was just blindly thinking. I thought that if I could see it with my eyes, there would definitely not be such a big mistake with so many professionals like you. Of course not. OK still gave a certain amount of respect to professionals. He reached out and pointed at the center of the lake in the dark. We will use flame to represent sublimation. The qualitative change will happen after the withered tree is ignited. Sure enough. Kids nowadays are so stubborn. When Xie Junping thought about the secret space in the withered tree and the rabid dog that could fly into a rage at any moment, he felt that it was not a good thing to watch the young man seek his own death. He wanted to earn some merit from the living. Junior Brother O, the Holistic Research Society is indeed full of wonderful ideas. But about the burning of the tree, we need to talk about it. OK looked at him warily. Senior Xie, you don't know much about our society's activities, so there is no need to say some things. You also know nothing about the terror of some people. Since he had grasped the situation, Xie Junping stopped smiling and stared at Quebec. Brother, no matter what activity it is, it must conform to the rules of the game. OK had long wanted to shed all pretense of cordiality. Hearing this, he sneered again. Are you talking about the school's approval? The school office, the student council, the parent-teacher conference, including the society office that Senior Xie is in. If there are any missing procedures, feel free to mention it. If there is one missing, the project will be immediately dropped. But if you can't find it, don't talk nonsense here. When it came to procedures, Xie Junping really choked. For a big society like the Mystic Arts Research Society, they had honed their skills in all kinds of materials and procedures. It was not easy to find loopholes, and it was even more difficult to say anything in a short period of time. While he was choking, OK turned to the others around and shouted, Listen up, the society's task is very important. Before Christmas Eve, the layout of this place must be completed, and internal experiments must be carried out at least 3 times. Otherwise, the opening of the activity week will be a messy scene, and we will only be able to clean up the mess. Keep your eyes open for the next 2 days. Don't let those irrelevant people come and cause trouble. If you encounter any troublemakers, tell them to get lost. This was not just pointing at the mulberry tree but scolding the locust tree. It was basically scolding Xie Junping. And among the society members that OK brought, there were very few wily old foxes like Old Hai. Most of them were newbies who had just entered the society, or perhaps they had long been aware of this. They had been working like cows and horses for the society for many years. Each and every one of them responded to the vice president's admonishment without end. They behaved extremely obediently, setting off OK's imposing manner. Xie Junping cursed OK in his mind for not recognizing good intentions. He was just about to think of another method when a voice suddenly entered his ears. It was very familiar. If it wasn't for you tormenting me, I would probably be in the same state right now. Huh! The corner of Xie Junping's eyes jumped. He turned his head to look and saw the crazy dog protecting his home that he had just cursed silently. He didn't know when, but he was already not far behind Xie Junping. He was leaning against the shore of the lake, casting his gaze very calmly. Are you a ghost? When did you get here? Just now. Only now did Xie Junping understand the meaning of Luo Nan's words just now. Luo Nan was probably talking about the unforeseen event that happened on the day they first met. Luo Nan brushed shoulders with the Mystic Arts Research Society, but he had an even better opportunity. Yeah, you want to thank me. Xie Junping was just about to tease Luo Nan when he saw Luo Nan's overly calm gaze. His heart twitched a bit. Speaking of which, Luo Nan was a master of perception that was publicly acknowledged throughout the world. Even if they were in the underground laboratory, this bit of distance was completely meaningless to him. And from multiple channels of information, Luo Nan seemed to be getting more and more used to using his fists to solve problems. Could it be that a murder was going to happen at Gear tonight? He subconsciously wanted to ease the atmosphere. Let's not get angry with a child. Hey, you came out wearing this? Xie Junping suddenly noticed that Luo Nan's upper body was only wearing a thin shirt despite the freezing weather. There was the school badge of Acumen College on his chest. Were all awakened this willful? Luo Nan went, oh. It seemed that he was completely indifferent to the bitter cold weather. At the same time, he was completely indifferent to what was happening at the shore of the lake. This wasn't right. Xie Junping was a bit stupefied. He subconsciously wanted to find more evidence, but he turned his head and saw Shui Lei not far away. There was also Rui Wen, the person they were looking for. Oh, wasn't the jacket that the little girl was wearing Luo Nan's? He couldn't see anything else clearly due to the dim lighting. From the looks of it, could it be that she accidentally fell into the water? Xie Junping didn't have the time to think too much at this moment. OK had finished venting his temper at the group of laborers, and he saw a few more people appear at the shore of the lake. It must be known that he had just said that he was going to get rid of the miscellaneous people. Wasn't this a slap to his face? OK's baby face turned green. He was just about to open his mouth to berate Luo Nan. Luo Nan suddenly walked up to him. Vice President, as a member of the society, I wish to express my opinion. Xie Junping cried out in his mind, oh no! OK was stunned for a moment. Only now did he clearly see Luo Nan's face. Luo Nan was more or less a celebrity figure in the Mystic Arts Research Society. Everyone knew that he had borrowed someone else's identity to enter the society. Not to mention his ability, his connections were certainly solid. OK's brain spun for a while before he realized that Luo Nan and Xie Junping were on the same side from the start. But during this moment of stupefaction, Luo Nan had already continued speaking. I participated in the reconstruction of the basic design of the Elusis Mystic apparatus. I also analyzed and calculated the basic framework of the Star of David. I didn't consider supernatural powers at the time, or perhaps I should say the problem of magical powers. It doesn't have the capacity to carry this. It's impossible to go from 0 to 1. It's even more impossible to sublimate from 1 to 100. If the Star of David is still the key structure of the mystic apparatus, then there's no need for us to waste our efforts. What nonsense are you spouting? OK instinctively berated. But when he saw Luo Nan's eyes in the darkness, he felt an indescribable emptiness in his heart. His voice dropped 2 octaves. How laughable. The final structure optimization was guided by a true master of the mystic arts. Then did the master advise you that this is just a dazzling trick at most? It's more suitable for amusing people indoors. It's not something that can be piled up into a different result by simply enlarging the scale. The one who spoke these words was not Luo Nan. Instead, it was a young woman with a rather pleasant voice. However, the most eye-catching thing was that the newcomer approached from afar. When she arrived at the lakeside, she went directly to Luo Nan's side. She gently pulled on the crook of Luo Nan's arm and kissed him. Luo Nan's brows furrowed for a moment. OK looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His baby face was flushed red with shame and indignation. Even his voice became sharp. Senior Sister Fei. Xie Junping shivered. In an instant, the lakeside seemed to have entered the filming location of a third-rate melodrama. The atmosphere of the early stages completely collapsed. Chapter 6:16. Now in the lakeside area, OK was undoubtedly the most worried one. Not only had he suffered a blow to his reputation, but he had also been fatally denied in his profession. Black Wolf's experienced senior brother was the master of mysticism that he had mentioned. Although he didn't know what was going on, he had appeared with Fei Jin and endorsed her. This had already caused the young and promising Vice President OK to suffer his first major failure in life. Xie Junping couldn't bear to look at OK's current appearance. He was also worried that this fellow would say some stupid words and do stupid things after being provoked over and over again. Xie Junping pulled Luo Nan along the lakeside and walked a bit further away, eliminating the greatest variable in this place. Luo Nan allowed OK to pull him along. It seemed that Luo Nan didn't have any special feelings towards Quebec Luo and felt that OK was a bit absent-minded. Luo Nan's gaze was cast towards the dark depths of the lake, but it was unfocused. Where did you and Ruewen go? Researching a difficult problem. Even electromagnetic waves can't penetrate it? Auntie Luo called me and Shuelei. By the way, aren't you going to cultivate in seclusion alone? Only now did Luo Nan roll his eyes. I can't handle this by myself. Aren't you adjusting the exoskeleton? It looks good to me. Other than that, what else is there to do? At this time, Shuelei and Ruewen also came over and stood together with them. Xie Junping was only able to clearly see what Ruewen was wearing when he got closer. Not to mention anything else, just those torn trousers and exposed snow-white leg muscles made him suck in a breath of cold air. He didn't dare to say anything else. Luo Nan turned to Ruewen and said, "You've been tormented quite a bit today. Go home and rest. Oh, you were a little exhausted just now. Don't walk by yourself. Let Brother Ping send you back." Xie Junping's train of thought was a bit erratic, and his reaction was half a beat slower. Before he could even open his mouth to reply, Ruewen had already shook her head. "I can still continue." Luo Nan refused her. "There's no need to take risks. Plus, today's harvest is enough for me to properly digest and absorb for a while. Junior Nan." Someone opened their mouth to greet him, cutting into Luo Nan's small circle. "Oh, Senior Fei." The one who spoke was none other than Fei Jin. This girl who had just made a dazzling entrance, abandoned the disgraced OK and walked over with a smile. She wanted to extend her hand and hook Luo Nan's arm like before, but Luo Nan's indifferent gaze stopped her. Clearly, he was not prepared to continue having intimate actions with her. He wasn't even prepared to say, "Thank you." Fei Jin was good at socializing, and because of that, she was good at reading people. Her first contact with Luo Nan's gaze was enough for her to know that her social target tonight lacked patience. Forcefully starting a conversation would only backfire on her. As for the matter of helping just now, there was no need to even mention it. Why would a top-notch genius of the inner world need someone else's help to stand up for him? Therefore, Fei Jin didn't have any thoughts of being arrogant. Her friendly approach didn't work, so she immediately lowered her posture even more. She put her palms together and carefully begged, "I might have been a little abrupt just now. It's not easy for me to meet you, so I have something that I would like to ask for your help with." She didn't even wait for Luo Nan to ask. She immediately spoke, "I hope to be able to cooperate with Junior in this activity." Activities? The first thing that came to Luo Nan's mind was the Mystic Arts-themed week event that would open next week. He had always had a dispensable attitude towards this. "Since it's a club activity, I'll definitely participate." "Junior brother, you've misunderstood. I meant the grand banquet party." Fei Jin's enunciation of the last few words was a bit indistinct. But at the same time, she raised her wrist. The virtual dial that seemed to interweave with garbled codes clearly indicated what she was referring to. Luo Nan frowned. Fei Jin put her palms together once more and made a small bow a few times. "Junior, this party is really important to me. The task of your male guests, interesting tattoos, focuses on quantity. But for us women, splendid communication, focuses on quality. In that circle, you're the only one that I can find to collaborate with. You're the most outstanding one." A beautiful woman with an extraordinary appearance was cautiously begging for help. From a man's perspective, just the swelling feeling of satisfaction was already an enormous enjoyment. But Luo Nan's eyes didn't even blink. This continued until Fei Jin, who saw that the situation wasn't looking good, raised another condition. "If Junior can help me out at the party, the votes that I can gather from the Mystic Arts Research Society will all belong to you, Junior. I don't dare say anything else, but at the very least, I can save you quite a bit of trouble." Luo Nan's eyebrows twitched. This is fine. Such a straightforward attitude caught Fei Jin off guard. She only came back to her senses after they added each other as friends. And by this time, Luo Nan had already directly said goodbye to her and invited her to leave. It was probably because Fei Jin rarely received this kind of treatment. It took a lot of effort for her to maintain her smile without fading. She just left in a bit of a hurry. Xie Junping watched from the side in a daze. Can these two be equal? That's not the point. Luonan didn't care whether Fei Jin had gone far or not. He minded his own thoughts and plans. There are too many things that need to be considered. I need to fix my sensing mode in the shortest amount of time possible. Whether it's the society or the feast, I need to save as much trouble as I can. It's better if I can push them off. Xie Junping didn't understand what fixing my sensing mode meant for a time, but he understood Luonan's perfunctory attitude towards Fei Jin. Then why did you agree? I didn't want to talk too much. Plus, she understands everything. Luonan's unspoken words were. Since Fei Jin had contact with the people of the inner world, she certainly understood Luonan's position. She should know what to do and what not to do in her heart. Xie Junping curled his lips. You've explained so much to me. Should I express my honor? Another person appeared on the stage just as Luonan finished speaking. It's a great honor to be able to meet Mr. Luo. This time, it was Black Wolf Sr. This person's attitude was quite proper compared to Fei Jin. When he bowed in greeting, he had a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. My name is Huan Hua. I'm a wandering magician. Mr. Huan Hua. Luonan maintained a basic level of respect towards his fellow practitioners of the inner world. Mr. Luo's hypotheses and reasoning regarding the mental world are too brilliant. Especially the cage theory. Whether it's inside or outside, it possesses limitless potential. It truly is a genius idea. I believe that this will be a brand new entry point for humans to explore, temper, and entrust their souls. Huan Hu appeared to be a mature and steady person from the outside, but he didn't skimp on praising the contents of Luonan's lecture. He gave off the feeling that he approved of Luonan from the bottom of his heart. Luonan had seen this sort of attitude many times since his lecture on the 14th. He was able to face it calmly and gave his thanks once more. Huan Hu knew his limits very well. He didn't have any intentions of having a deep conversation with Luonan. He just said, I've always wanted to personally experience Mr. Tang Luo's soul lessons. Unfortunately, I will be leaving Xia City tonight. I can only leave this wish for the future. Huan Hu bowed once more after he finished speaking and walked away in a straightforward and efficient manner. Black Wolf, who was following behind him, greeted Luonan, Xue Lei, and the others before leaving with Huan Hua. Chapter 6:17. The meeting that came and went in a hurry was a bit anticlimactic. Fei Jin, Mirage Fire, and Black Wolf were silent the entire way. Each had their own thoughts. After crossing the winding bridge that cut through the forest, Fei Jin stopped at the head of the South Bank Bridge. She said that she was waiting for a friend. Mirage Fire and Black Wolf tactfully said their goodbyes. After a courteous handover, they concluded the mission of Acumen College. The two prepared to walk through the entrance to the underground parking lot of the South Bank Auditorium. Because it was 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening on a weekend, there were not many people around. It was very quiet. Coupled with the outstanding perception of ability users, they could still hear Fei Jin's voice from dozens of meters away. It was different from the soft and low tone before, and it sounded a little sharp. This sort of thing is meaningless. Black Wolf turned his head to look. Under the illumination of the stone lanterns at the head of the bridge, he could see that Fei Jin was talking to someone through her wristband. The atmosphere was quite tense. He raised his eyebrows. TSK. It looks like this lady had a hard time restraining herself. Don't worry about other people's business. Mirage Fire didn't even turn his head. He just walked straight ahead. Black Wolf shrugged. I just find it strange. This mission is too simple. We are the consultants of the Starry Sky Club. How can we just say these few words from beginning to end? There's nothing for me to do. Maybe it's better to stay at the training center at night. Mirage Fire turned his head to look at him. Isn't dealing with Mr. Luo the most difficult thing in Xia City? If you aren't with us, who knows how much more effort it would take to get rid of this misunderstanding. Luonan. I heard from Yingying that he's usually a weak otaku, but he always overreacts to external stimuli. He's probably the type that doesn't understand the rules of doing things. He acts completely according to his own emotions. Mirage Fire lowered his head and laughed. Mr. Luo is a universally recognized master of perception. Do you think he can hear us across the river? Black Wolf grinned. He's not that petty. Though he said this, Black Wolf changed the subject. Senior, you're leaving tonight, right? I'll take you to the airport. I would have taken you even if you didn't mention it. At least help me return the rental car. Also, I'm not going to the airport. I'm going to the dock. Ha! The order has made some last-minute arrangements. They need me to go on a mission in the seas outside of Xia City. If things go smoothly, I might be able to make a detour to Ocean City and take a plane to the New World from there. Black Wolf replied with an "oh," and did not take it too seriously. Ability users like them would always have some strange things to do. Then I'll go with you to the dock and return your car to the car rental company. Actually, Black Wolf knew that the car rental shops in Xia City had value-added services such as driving or remote summoning services. However, chatting with senior brother Mirage Flame for a while and listening about soul cultivation techniques was always a good idea. The two of them found the flying car in the underground parking lot. This time, Black Wolf sat in the driver's seat. When the car followed the instructions and entered the exit lane, the wind whistled behind them, and a silver-gray supercar swept past them. The side window of the sports car was open, and they could see the fashionable woman in the driver's seat. It was Fei Jean, who had just bid farewell to them not long ago. The air currents from the sports car blew her long curly hair, making her look dazzling and charming. However, how annoyed was she that she had to drive so fast in the underground parking lot. I hope she won't give us a bad review when she gets back. Don't worry. She wasn't the one who issued the mission, Mirage Flame said and told Black Wolf the address they were going to. Black Wolf went through it in his mind and said curiously, "That's not a port. A private dock." 40 minutes later, Black Wolf drove the car into the private dock area that Mirage Flame spoke of. This was actually a seaside resort villa area. One could hear the sound of the tide rustling on the coast. The rhythm was distinct, and the place was gentle. In summer, this place would be a golden beach, a tourist attraction. Unfortunately, due to the season, the villa area appeared rather deserted. There were not many lights. Black Wolf drove the car into the villa area under Mirage Flame's guidance. The journey was smooth and unimpeded. It was clear that Mirage Flame had access to this place. This was very normal, but also a bit strange. Black Wolf looked to both sides. Where do I get on the boat? I didn't see where the dock was just now. Hey, look over there. Under the illumination of the car's headlights, the silver-gray streamlined body of the car was rather eye-catching. Black Wolf felt that this car was very familiar. He was a member of the Xia City branch operation team, so he had a very good memory. He looked at the license plate and concluded, "It's that Miss Fei. It's that Miss Fei who's been suppressed miserably. What a coincidence. Is she here to meet her lover?" Don't worry about others. Mirage Flame signaled Black Wolf to stop the car. The two got off the car one after another. Then Mirage Flame pointed to the detached villa next to them. "This is it." Black Wolf laughed in spite of himself. "Senior, are you driving this house to the sea?" Mirage Flame responded seriously, "This is the ticket hall." Ha! Black Wolf didn't understand. He just followed Mirage Flame subconsciously. Mirage Flame was very familiar with this place. He also had the corresponding access. He crossed the front yard in 2 or 3 steps and opened the front door of the villa. The lights in the villa were always on. After the door opened, the gentle light seeped out from the room and elongated Mirage Flame's shadow. The shadow extended to Black Wolf's feet. "A secret base," Black Wolf mumbled. He already had a guess in his mind. Mirage Flame didn't go to the sea through proper channels. This was nothing. This was normal in the inner world. Black Wolf was even a bit happy. Being able to follow him here meant that in Mirage Flame's eyes, he already had the qualifications to enter the villa. He walked through the door and before he could look at the decorations inside, Mirage Flame suddenly remembered something. "Ah, I left my tool bag in the car. I'll go get it." "Forget it. You don't know which one it is. Give me the key. Sit in the living room for a while. There should be fruits there." Mirage Flame took the key and walked back. Black Wolf shrugged. Only then did he see that the main hall of the villa was a hollow structure. The first and second floors were connected by a circular staircase. It was very spacious and spacious. It would be a pity if it was left empty. Huh? At this moment, Black Wolf suddenly heard a familiar voice. It was shouting in an intense tone, These tests are meaningless. There's no meaning in them at all. Don't you understand? I'm not his type. His attitude is just perfunctory. Black Wolf was stunned. Then a low and pleasant female voice rang out. Of course there is meaning in the tests. The importance that person places on gear and the withered tree sandbar are all points that can be used. Furthermore, you have a nominal connection with him. So you know it's nominal? I'm sorry, but I can't carry that name. At the same time, I have my reservations about your recent work arrangements. I will report this to the relevant authorities. As the voice spoke, high heels stomped heavily on the floor. A certain lady, fine, it was Fei Jean, who he had already met many times tonight. She stormed out of a room on the second floor. She strode to the staircase, but she stopped. His eyes met the Black Wolf's in the completely empty main hall. Black Wolf's mind went blank. He instinctively wanted to explain. But in the next moment, there was a slight gap between their gazes. It was also at this moment that a strong sense of fear rapidly spread from her eyes to her entire face. Not good. Chapter 6:18. At the staircase on the second floor, Fei Jean had witnessed a creepy and cruel sneak attack scene from beginning to end. Moreover, the two main characters in this scene had only parted ways with her less than an hour ago. She watched as the middle-aged man named Huan Hua pretended to leave and then return. He approached Hei Lang's back like a ghost and locked his throat. Fei Jean felt that she was experiencing a nightmare herself. Half a second later, Huan Hua raised his head. His gaze was calm, but it was clearly filled with the coldest elements. Under his gaze, Fei Jin's throat seemed to be strangled by an invisible hand. She could not make a sound. Only fear and instinct drove her to turn around and flee in the direction from which she had come. But the moment she turned around, a face filled her entire field of vision. It was so close that she could only see a pair of charming narrow eyes that were as calm and cold as Huan Hua's. Then, a hand strangled her neck, and a familiar voice entered her ears. It's okay if you don't want to take this mission. Someone else will take over your work. You can take some time off. It's Christmas. I'll grant you a long vacation, okay? A long vacation? No. Fei Jean finally saw the face in front of her clearly. Hatred and even more intense fear filled her chest. She wanted to struggle, but the other party exerted his strength before she could. An irresistible force came, causing her body to fall backward and hit the fence behind her. Then she flipped and hung in the air, her head spinning. Fei Jean wanted to scream out of instinct, but the dry and warm sensation on her throat was clearly magical. It firmly sealed the last bit of strength in her vocal cords. She could only open her eyes wide and let the decorative background of the main hall of the villa and the familiar yet strange face on the second floor twist and weave together. Finally, the bizarre scenery and the corresponding fear broke the string of her will. Before she could touch the ground, the darkness had already drowned her. Downstairs, Huan Hua caught Fei Jean, who had fallen down, and placed her on the sofa near the fireplace. Then, he lifted the plush carpet that covered the area from the main hall door to the spiral staircase. Under the beautiful fabric, there was a flat layer of tiles. However, the structure of this layer of tiles looked very complicated. Every tile had a different shape, but they were joined together seamlessly, forming a complex and strange graphic structure. The internal structure of this area was indescribable. It was a long and narrow rhombus shape. Phantom Fire placed Black Wolf, who was still unconscious, at a sharp corner of the diamond-shaped area. He occupied another spot, about 6 meters away from Black Wolf. At this time, on the second floor, the sound of heels hitting the ground could be heard again. Another figure appeared on the railing. However, Huan Hua didn't even look in that direction. After everything was arranged properly, he took off his clothes and sat down with his legs crossed. His hands formed a seal and he began to chant an incantation in a low voice. As the low and hoarse voice flowed out, the space in the main hall of the villa seemed to ripple slightly. The light was distorted, forming a looming three-dimensional structure in the void. At the same time, it looked like a translucent spiderweb that was shot out of thin air and connected the Phantom Fire and the Black Wolf. The incantation came to an end. The diamond-shaped area on the ground and the invisible threads of light in the air had already built a complex and complete structure together. Ha! Huan Hua's eyes were wide open. He spat out the powerful incantation, as if he had spat out all the air in his body. His entire body was shrunk, making him look strange and demonic. However, he didn't maintain this image for long. Scorching flames shot out from his mouth where he had just spat out the incantation, and from the gaps of his eyes, ears, and nose. The flames surrounded Huanhua's head. Then they moved downward, past his shoulders, chest, abdomen, and legs. Wherever they passed, the skin and flesh were like the highest level of fuel, emitting pure light and heat. In the depths of the flames, there was a silver luster. The flames moved from the top to the bottom, and from the bottom to the top. When they returned to the top of his head, they suddenly turned into a mottled ray of light that faintly turned into a rainbow. They were placed between Huanhua's head and Black Wolf's head. With a muffled bang, the flames dissipated. The place where Huanhua had been sitting was no longer a human. What was left was a metal object that looked like a human. Apart from that, there were no other traces. After a few seconds, the unconscious Black Wolf on the ground suddenly shuddered. His entire body began to twitch slightly. This state lasted for more than a minute. Then Black Wolf opened his eyes. He moved his fingers a little, twisted his neck, and then sat up. His body swayed back and forth, as if he was still dizzy, but his eyes were clear. After a short pause, he slowly got up. Ignoring the weakness in his legs, he slowly walked to the remains of Huanhua. He dismantled the metal frame with familiarity, turned it into a set of parts, and put them into his tool bag. After doing all this, Black Wolf, or Huanhua, cleaned up the scene and put the carpet back in place. Then, he pushed the door open, started the car, and disappeared into the night. From the beginning to the end, he didn't care about Fei Jin, who was by the fireplace. It was as if this was the entire mission. As the car drove away, the seaside holiday villa was once again submerged in silence. But this atmosphere didn't last long. The crystal light shone down on the unconscious Fei Jin's face, reflecting the luster of youth. "That's great. You're as young as a flower. What do you think of the target I chose for you?" There were two figures at the top of the stairs on the second floor. One of them had just pushed Fei Jin down the stairs. She leaned against the fence, her camel-colored long windbreaker open, revealing a snow-white shirt and dark pants. Her short hair was thin, making her look bright and crisp. But her voluptuous body curves, as well as the 12-centimeter stilettos on her feet, still highlighted a strong feminine quality. Beside her, Yinlu wore a very ordinary professional suit. Although her looks, figure, and youthfulness were superior, she still couldn't compare to this person's carefree and easygoing nature. The Blood Flame Order was currently facing a grim situation, including this person's attitude and behavior, made it impossible for her to be casual. So, Yinlu glared at him sternly. "Multifaceted, what do you mean?" Multifaceted smiled in response. "As you requested, I'm fighting for a chance to get close to Mr. Luo. Don't increase your physical body unless necessary." I thought this kind of simple logic didn't need to be emphasized. "Then why did you go through me?" "Through the manager of the Starry Sky Club, a person with extremely complicated social connections?" When Multifaceted, or rather, Sun Jiari, appeared in this villa, she was no longer the manager of the leisure club, but a well-known broker who roamed the various forces in the inner world. Aside from attentive service, she also had her own way of doing things when dealing with clients. You must know that the current Xia City branch is still in a loose on the outside but tight on the inside. Any ability user who can interact with a target for a long period of time is the result of going through a sieve several times. So, I believe that the true "don't increase your physical body" is to borrow the help of relevant personnel who have previously made contact with you. Chapter 619. Sun Jiari pointed at Fei Jin by the fireplace. She is a student of Acumen College. At the same time, she is one of the investors of the Mystic Arts Research Society. She has a relatively close relationship with the outer circle of the inner world. She can have close contact with Mr. Luo at the school and at the banquet organized recently. Moreover, the distance between them is very appropriate. You can talk about something through her. You can also do something through her. You can treat her as a communication software, but she can also be used as a more effective tool. With such a buffer, it would be great if the effect of contact is positive. Even if the effect is negative, as long as you rationally control your limits, it won't have an excessive impact on your relationship with Mr. Luo. Yinlu wasn't convinced by her. Sun Jiao smiled as she faced the fierce and murderous gaze. She pointed at her own forehead. Of course, I won't deny that there are some other calculations involved. This is because this Miss Fei has many illustrious statuses. She is also a secret observer of the LCRF. She is also a newly promoted agent. This has formed a certain restraint and conflict with my duties in Xia City. Right now, the situation over at the Starry Sky Club is complicated. This new agent has always wanted to take over my position. She has also been secretly gathering information that is disadvantageous to me. I don't have any plans to resign for now, so I'll teach her a lesson. The curve of Yin Li's lips was like an unsheathed scimitar. She took a step back and continued to draw a clear line between herself and Sun Jiari. Unfortunately, we cannot accept this reason. Sun Jiari shrugged. It shouldn't be your turn to make this decision. Is that right? Madam? Behind Yin Lu, the shadow formed by the clash of light and substance shook slightly. Madam Holder's voice drifted out. It was like silk, yet it was clear and discernible. You can try to convince me. Boss. Yin Lu was very shocked. Why would Madam Holder, who was dozens of kilometers away, suddenly use a secret technique and directly communicate with Sun Jiari? Because of this, she quickly shut her mouth. She didn't want to sing a different tune from her own first ablatum in front of outsiders. The situation of the communication within the empty villa changed. Sun Jiari stood up straight for the first time. She gave a slight bow towards Yin Lu. Actually, she was giving a polite and appropriate greeting to Madame Holder's divine sense in the shadow behind Yin Lu. I would be happy to expand on my ideas and advance my work. Do not increase the physical unless necessary. Humans tend to interpret and drive the world in a more efficient manner, but in fact, the scope of our willful use of this mode is very small, and only exists in a narrow area of our control. Like now. Speaking up to this point, she suddenly changed the topic. Mr. Luo is under the protection of the Xia City branch. He is in close contact with Mr. Luo. He is under the protection of layers upon layers of the Xia City branch. Recently, there were very few people who made such a high technical request, and the reward was sufficiently generous. That's why I'm giving you a corresponding value-added service for free. The soul transfer array here will allow you to save more effort and be more discreet. Out of professional consideration, I must mention the sponsor of the product, a secret organization that has been quite active recently, the Soul Cult. Soul Cult? Yin Lu repeated subconsciously. Sun Jiai smiled. Yes, the Soul Cult. If you are willing or must use this product, I can give a further explanation. In the shadows, Lady Holder said coldly. No, there is no need. I just need a reason to continue our partnership. I'm a broker. I don't presume any standpoint, and I possess sufficient professional ethics. That's enough. Sun Jiari spread her hands. She seemed innocent and free and at ease, but she could only shrug when faced with a gaze of disregard. Fine. Sometimes I tend to make my work simple. I combine and reorganize matters that are related to secrets, and I advance them as a whole. Just like tonight. You wish to obtain an opportunity to make contact with Mr. Luo. The Soul Cult requests an opportunity to infiltrate the Xia City branch. At the same time, the Soul Cult is very interested in making contact with you. They even have plans and needs that are further advanced. I use the physical of an event to coordinate and combine these three matters to achieve the greatest efficiency. I believe that this is a true example of, do not increase the physical unless necessary. Is that so? In the shadows, Lady Holder's thoughts turned bone-piercingly cold. You attempted to direct our actions and directly exposed our secret intentions. Is this what you call professional ethics? Yin Lu didn't say a word as she acted as a long-distance carrier. Dark red flowing light shuttled and interweaved within her pupils. Her aura was abnormally withdrawn. She had already completed her preparations to attack at any moment. I believe that this is the foundation of our many years of cooperation. It's the second value-added service that I'll give you for free. Madam, you actually don't know that the Soul Cult has their eyes on you? Flames swirled within Yin Li's eyes, but her feet didn't move an inch. Perhaps her thoughts were the same. Sun Jiai continued to speak. Perhaps the Soul Cult feels embarrassed about this situation, so they asked me to bring you a message. Right now, the Blood Flame Order isn't having an easy time. Perhaps it's time for them to look for allies, external aid, or even to find someone to rely on.
You're multifaceted.
Inla subconsciously rebuked. Sun Jiari took a step back. Her smile remained. I'm just a broker. I'm just a messenger. Aside from that, I have no other standpoint. Madam, if you consider their suggestions, or if you simply need more information regarding the soul cult, you can find me. The method of contact remains the same, and the price can be discounted. As she spoke, Sun Jiari leisurely walked down the stairs. When she reached the bottom, she turned back. Although there's no conclusive evidence, based on our current analysis, it's very likely that Mr. Luo has the ability to sense things in a large area. Even though this place is still considered far from his current location, I still suggest that we don't cause too much of a commotion. The soul transfer array is a good choice, but if Madam insists, the Blood Flame Order's secret technique shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, that's right.
Before Fei Jin fainted, she had already accumulated enough fear. It's a good prerequisite for the execution of your esteemed order's secret technique. For this reason, I even self-destructed. This is also the third value-added service that I'm giving you for free. I hope Madam will remember it. After saying these words, Sun Jiari left the villa. She left a large amount of doubts and strange elements behind, allowing them to fully ferment and constantly change into new components. A few seconds later, Madam Holder's thoughts manifested.
Inlu. Boss.
Secret orders aren't just any random person. Yes, boss. The establishment of every order is supported by at least one extraordinary or an existence close to one.
Yes.
Otherwise, the order would have no foundation in the Abyss district. Chapter 620.
Sister over here.
Tian Qi stood up and greeted Tian Si from a corner of the bar. Tian Si also saw her cousin. She carefully bypassed the bustling stream of people and walked over. I haven't seen your shadow for almost a month. Are you also in seclusion? Tian Qi pulled out the chair where his jacket was placed and invited his cousin to take a seat. He complained incessantly, but the target of his attack was quite subtle. Tian Si laughed. Before she could speak, Tian Qi had already noticed the relaxed and joyful expression on her face. He lightly slapped the table. It looks like there are no problems on Grandma Pan's side. Yes, I've received the official notice. Although there's still half a year before school officially starts, I'll be following the project starting next month. Congratulations. Congratulations. Grandma Pan's graduate student quota is enough to make people fight over it every year. I can only say that I was lucky. Tian Si didn't want to talk about this topic. She called over the waitress dressed as a witch. A cup of mocha, thank you. The waitress recognized Tian Si. She apologized softly. Senior Sister Tian, the coffee is sold out. Then a cup of hot cocoa. The waitress accepted the order and left. Tian Qi rushed to claim credit. See, it wasn't easy for me to save you a seat. Tian Xi's gaze swept across the corner of the bar. This was the public activity area located on the second floor of Northern Rock Gear. It was close to the sandbar waterway and faced the scenery at the bottom of the lake. It was originally a good place to cultivate the body and mind, but the surging stream of people made it seem more like a popular tourist spot. Your society's theme week is pretty good. You know, it's not purely based on the theme week. Right now, this place is almost bursting with people. I really miss the days when it was just Luo Nan and the others, even though I didn't come here many times. Tian Qi sighed. He consciously lowered his voice. Sister, did you come here to find Luo Nan? It's not easy to see him right now. I made an appointment. This kind of conversation shouldn't have happened between schoolmates, but the Tian siblings felt that it was very normal. That's good. Tian Qi suddenly cried out before he could finish speaking. Behind me. Look at the lake. Tian Si subconsciously turned her head and saw a huge and flat body slanted at a certain angle in the lake of chaos separated by tempered glass to the side of the public activity area. It silently streaked past, blocking the line of sight of everyone in the bar. There was no source of light at the bottom of the lake, only the lights from the public area projected into the lake. Under the illumination of the lights, the demonic fish that looked like giant bats were showing off their wingspans that were more than 20 meters long and their pale lower abdomen, which had hideous mouthparts, to the tourists. especially when the demonic fish turned around. Its 10-meter-long thin tail of scales slammed into the tempered glass. The heavy impact seemed to make the entire glass wall tremble. The tail even carried its own electric flames. Every time it jumped and flashed, it seemed to burn the hearts of the onlookers. Many men and women cried out in fear and excitement. Tianxi stared blankly at this scene. Even though she had been mentally prepared, when she saw this demonic fish, the terrifying scene from 2 months ago seemed to replay itself. She couldn't help but shiver, her cheeks almost draining of blood. In comparison, Tianqi had seen a lot more, and he didn't know what his cousin had experienced in Ocean Sky Cloud City. He let out a sigh of satisfaction. It's different from what I saw in Ocean Sky Cloud City. It seems like they could break through the glass at any time. Actually, I don't think any theme week can compare to this thing going around in a circle. Sis, are you okay? Tianxi seemed to wake up from a dream, but it wasn't good to turn her head and let her cousin see her current expression. She could only speak randomly. This stingray is the one from Ocean Sky Cloud City? Yes, that's the one. It's grown quite a bit. Who says it isn't? I heard that its wingspan has grown by nearly 1/3 since it was first captured, and its growth has been concentrated in the past 2 months. It must have eaten and drunk well in Ocean Sky Cloud City and fattened up. The stingray swaggered around behind the tempered glass for a while, then turned and entered the depths of the lake where people couldn't see. It left the ground full of exclamations of admiration. However, no one here knew that among them, there was someone who had previously come into close contact with this aberration, the kind that was almost eaten. Tianxi turned around and subconsciously picked up the hot drink on the table. Only then did she realize that her hands had become cold, and her legs were even trembling. But at the same time, her heart was boiling hot, and then a vermilion blush stained her face. This was also a mixture of fear and excitement. Her mood wasn't much different from the others present, but it was more deeply colored by memories, or perhaps it was sublimated by expectations. Last time in Ocean Sky Cloud City, this ferocious monster had used its long electric tail to wrap around her legs, and it could tear her to pieces in the next second. But it was also from that incident that she truly glimpsed the scene behind the scenes of today's world and touched upon a magical corner of the inner world. She took small sips of the hot cocoa to calm herself down, then asked, "This mutant should be very dangerous. Why did it move here?" It said that the family that left the stingray in Ocean Sky Cloud City couldn't afford the rental and feeding fees, so they sold this thing at a high price. The buyer was someone in our society, but no one knew that this person was willful enough to directly move this monster here as an ornamental fish. You don't know. What? Nothing. I'm just a little curious as to who would spend so much money to open up their connections and place a mutant in the jungle of the North Bank. Professor Wu and the others can't bear to see this happen. You're talking about Professor Pan's husband, right? He's probably going to go mad with anger. Apparently, he took advantage of Professor Pan's trip to act first and report later. It's hard to say whether or not he'll be able to stay here for a long time. Tianqi was quite open-minded. I think it's most likely temporary. It just so happens that the theme week needs a gimmick. Speaking of which, Vice President O's Elusis apparatus replay program has already collapsed. I heard that Luo Nan was the one who stopped it. Now that the stingray is here, no one would have the guts to run to the lake and cause a ruckus. From this point of view. You understand? Yeah, we all understand. Her slender fingers were placed lightly on Tianqi's shoulder. They were like jade tubes, yet they carried the pressure of a steel pipe. Tianqi jumped in fright. He reflexively wanted to get up, but he was pressed down to the point where he couldn't move. Tianqi stood up and greeted the mature and sexy woman behind Tianqi. Hello, Ms. Cat Eyes. You're welcome. I'm just an errand boy. I'm in charge of delivering and receiving messages. Cat Eyes very naturally pulled Tianqi out of his seat. She used this willful manipulation method to indicate to the young man to go do what he needed to do. Tianqi more or less had some understanding of this woman. He didn't say much. He winked at Tianqi, shrunk into the back of the crowd, and soon disappeared. Cat Eyes was the famous queen of nightclubs in Xia City. She really liked to join in on the fun, but she hated the bustling environment of gear because it brought her unnecessary workload. So she made a long story short. Luo Nan, Gao Meng, and Papercut. Oh, you know the one in the back. They're discussing some technical issues and forgot about the time. If you're willing to wait, I can take you to the 6th floor to rest. Actually, I just want to help an elder send an invitation. Elder? It's my instructor, Professor Pan Wen. I know. Luo Nan's mother's instructor, right? From now on, you'll be his teacher's aunt. That's not necessary. Tianxi was still a bit reserved when facing Cat Eyes. She wasn't used to chatting and joking with her. Okay, I understand. Come with me. Won't I disturb him? Tianxi was still a bit worried. You've already agreed to wait. What's there to disturb? Cat Eyes smiled and stood up. She led Tianxi around the stream of people and slowly walked down the fire escape passageway. She casually explained, right now, there are too many idle people waiting. For the sake of tranquility, the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors have been sealed off from the outside world. It's not too convenient to go in and out. It's not good to have an elevator or something like that. We'll go down the stairs. There'll be a clearance check to get to the 5th floor. It'll be a bit troublesome. You should be prepared. Tianxi grunted in response and subconsciously sucked in a breath. She didn't feel that it would be troublesome. Instead, she felt quite expectant. The two ladies walked down one floor at a time. After passing through 2 floors, the clamor of the public activity area was more or less masked. Only the rhythmic sound of footsteps could be heard in the stairwell. Tianxi slightly adjusted her breathing. She pondered for a moment on what to say when she saw Luo Nan. Actually, she had rehearsed this conversation many times before, but she still couldn't help feeling nervous and anxious at this moment. Tianxi sighed to herself with such a state of mind. What the heart desires, there must be fear. Perhaps this was a type of blinded by greed? It was at this time that Cat Eyes spoke. You want to enter our circle? Tianxi's inner thoughts had been exposed in a single sentence. She subconsciously shivered and raised her head to look. Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow. What's there to be nervous about? It's not like you're a bandit. If you want to do it, just say it. Do you want to become an ability user? The corner of Tianxi's lips twitched. She laughed self-deprecatingly. Anyone can probably tell what I'm thinking. Who was the last person who could tell? Luo Nan? It was Mr. Papercut. Cat Eyes came to a sudden realization. Though she didn't participate in some matters, she still possessed the relevant information. You've crossed paths with him twice. That's right. The matter with Ocean Sky Cloud City will certainly affect you. You must have seriously considered it for you to be able to endure for so long before saying it. Actually, I didn't say it. Tianxi didn't dare to say these words. She could only nod. Papercut is a rather steady person. He didn't blindly encourage you back then, did he? Tianxi shook her head immediately. The matter with Ocean Sky Cloud City didn't need to be mentioned. She had yet to recover from the shock, causing her memories to be a bit messy. Her memories were especially deep and fuzzy. However, she had a clear memory of the entire matter from the get-together at Aurora Cloud City. She remembered that she had once mustered up the courage to ask Papercut, but he seemed to have intentionally avoided this topic. Cat Eyes snorted. He's quite responsible. His mind is clear. He knows that this is a field where talent is the most important. Talent? Chapter 621. Cat Eye's super blunt words caused Tianxi's cheeks to turn pale. She felt as if her feet were covered in lead, unable to lift them up. She unconsciously stopped walking, and Cat Eyes immediately stopped as well. The two stood in the stairwell, and the atmosphere naturally became heavy. Tianxi knew that she had lost her composure, but she was unable to control it. From her perspective, Cat Eyes was undoubtedly giving her a stern warning. Cat Eyes told her not to have wishful thinking and enter the level and domain of the inner world. Okay, perhaps this was also a warning. The problem was that her plans, hopes and fantasies were all going to turn to ashes just because of a single sentence from Cat Eyes? Ms. Cat Eyes. Tianxi spat out the words with great difficulty. I told you. You don't need to be so polite. Cat Eyes turned to the side and crossed her arms over her chest. She looked at Tianxi's expression with interest. I just spoke a few words of truth, that's all. Before Tianxi arrived at Gear, she never imagined that this would be the situation. It must be known that she invested all of her energy into Professor Pan at the end of the year. It wasn't purely for the sake of obtaining a corresponding offer. It was for the sake of saving the country in a roundabout way. She wanted to use her relationship with Professor Pan to further tie herself to Luo Nan's network. On Professor Pan's side, she succeeded and gained the old lady's love and trust. However, when she turned around and wanted to take advantage of the situation to win the final result, she was told, "You simply don't have the qualifications to do so." A few breaths later, Tianxi tried to regain control of her mind, but it was to no avail. It was at this moment that Cat Eye's voice entered her ears once more. Her voice wasn't loud, but she could hear it clearly. "Let's not talk about whether or not you can become an ability user. Let me ask you one thing. What is your goal?"
Goal?
Yeah. Do you want to enter a new domain and adventure? Do you want to obtain more capital to live a better life? Do you want to borrow new strength to solve old troubles? Or do you want to satisfy your ambition to continuously improve? Tianxi was a bit stupefied. She didn't know how to respond. Cat Eyes hooked a finger at her and continued down. "At the same time," she said with a chuckle, "you can seriously think about it and find your position. Many people yearn to be a star, but when they enter the entertainment circle, all they get is an assistant. The feeling of being served and being served is completely different, right?"
Yes.
Tianxi's mind was muddled and her heart was unsettled. She didn't even know what she was saying. Like a marionette, she followed Cat Eyes step by step. Very soon, they arrived at the sealed entrance. Cat Eyes examined Tianxi's authority step by step and made a record. Then, she brought Tianxi into the forbidden zone that had been sealed off for almost a week. The voice of the artificial intelligence sobered Tianxi up a little. She suddenly discovered that Cat Eye's words were extremely odd. Her heart skipped a beat, and certain words blurted out from her mouth. "As long as you have a clear location, you can also serve people." Hee, say that to someone else. This time, Cat Eyes did not even turn her head. She only waved her hand. "There's no need to tell me too much. I'm not your life coach.
It's just that in the past few years I've seen a lot of people in and out of the industry, especially the mentality of a bunch of people in the periphery, so I decided to chat with them and watch the show."
Tianxi opened her mouth but was unable to continue the conversation. However, she was able to confirm Cat Eye's playful attitude. But she couldn't bring herself to be angry at all. On the contrary, the hope that had already been extinguished sprouted from the ashes, growing and spreading. "We're here. This place is quite spacious. A lot of equipment hasn't been shipped in yet. There's no reception room or anything like that. I'll just lead you to the end. In any case, they should be done chatting soon." As she spoke, Cat Eyes had already brought Tianxi to the underground 7th floor of Gear. There was practically no difference in the layout of this place from a few days ago. There was a large expanse of spacious area, and only the innermost corner had the corresponding experimental equipment set up. Tianxi saw Luo Nan and the other two sitting on the ground in a very casual manner in the innermost side of the experimental area. Their hands seemed to be fiddling with stacks of paper drafts and the like. The color of the paper was clearly yellow. It was quite peculiar. Cat Eyes stopped 20 meters away from the three. "Let's wait here. If you're tired, you can do the same as them."
No need."
Tianxi shook her head. Her gaze wavered a bit. It would fall on Luo Nan for a moment, and then it would turn back to Cat Eyes for a moment. As for her state of mind and thoughts, they only became more turbulent. Cat Eyes suddenly turned her head. She gave a smile that was not a smile. "Actually, I wouldn't have said these words to you 2 weeks ago.
Then.
After all, the situation is different now. Look at that person."
"Who?
Mr. Paper Cut?" Tianxi followed the direction of Cat Eyes' finger and locked onto the target, but she still did not understand the deep meaning behind it. 2 weeks ago, I saw this person. He was probably destined to be a support for his entire life. He couldn't deal damage. He couldn't support the overall situation. It would be hard for him to raise his cultivation and status. This is the result of the limitations of his talent. But now things are a bit different.
Cat Eyes really dared to speak without the slightest scruple.
At this time, Paper Cut was completely engrossed in conversing with Luo Nan. He would wave his hand and gesture from time to time. His face was full of emotions, but he turned a deaf ear to the evaluation of others. Tianxi did not know what Papercut and Luo Nan were talking about, but she saw Luo Nan scratching his ears and cheeks. Luo Nan was so happy that he couldn't contain himself. Tianxi knew that it was certainly an extremely positive matter. Tianxi naturally had a simple inference when she combined what Cat Eyes had said before. Could it be that what Luo Nan was talking about right now was a method that could cross the barrier of talent? Tianxi's heart thumped loudly, and she unconsciously took a step forward. She managed to control herself with great difficulty, but she still pricked up her ears and did her best to catch the bits and pieces of conversation that flowed over. The problem was that she had no foundation in the domain of ability users. Let alone Luo Nan and the other two being far away. Even if Luo Nan and the other two were close at hand, it would be impossible for her to understand what Luo Nan was saying. In a corner of the laboratory, Gao Meng, a B-rank ability user, had long since noticed Cat Eyes and Tianxi coming over. He shot a glance over and chuckled at Luo Nan. "You have an appointment with a beautiful woman?" "Private business," Luo Nan responded, but he realized that he had gone off topic. Before Luo Nan could explain, Papercut, who was sitting cross-legged and grimacing at the paper talismans scattered on the ground, raised his head in a daze. "Is there a problem?" Luo Nan and Gao Meng shook their heads together. "Now that we've reached this step, it's basically quite appropriate." Gao Meng snapped his fingers, and a paper talisman on the ground quietly floated into the air. It spontaneously combusted without fire. The flame was like the finger of a god. It danced a few times, and in the blink of an eye, the paper talisman was sculpted and twisted into the shape of a ring within the light of the flames. The ring's diameter was slightly thicker than Gao Meng's wrist. It floated down like a feather and was caught by Gao Meng's hand. Tianxi was stupefied from watching, but Papercut was eager to get into action. "Let's try again? Who wants to try?" Luo Nan simply responded, "Don't bother two masters for the same thing." Chapter 622. After 1,000th of a second, Gao Meng's consciousness cut into the incorporeal and majestic fortress in the depths of the storm. The energy storm surged ceaselessly in the outside world. There seemed to be a path of wind, but there seemed to be no pattern to speak of. There was only pure destructive power wreaking havoc. Any ability user who could enter the abyssal region had to resist and contend against this destructive attack before they could make a move. But ever since the space fortress was erected, the configuration built by the combined efforts of over 1,000 people grew from nothing. It grew stronger bit by bit, using a steady and conservative method to gradually expand its domain and deepen its imprint. This was a continuous process. In the overall design of the Ring of Blood Intent, a seed, a tender sprout, grew and catalyzed step by step, gradually becoming a towering tree that could resist the destructive storm. Just this alone made the Ring of Blood Intent, which Luo Nan promoted, ranked among the greatest inventions of the inner world. Gao Meng did not need to borrow external force to mentally wander in the center of the abyssal region. But how could a short period of time, measured in seconds, compare to the stability and safety of the fortress? The space fortress constructed by the Ring of Blood Intent was already the top choice of the ability users of Xia City. Even if they had nothing to do here, it was good to be able to admire the scenery of the abyssal region and watch the gods fight. Whether it was Gao Meng or the other ability users of Xia City, they were all having fun in this space fortress. But who would have thought that its inventor was no longer satisfied with his current achievements? He was currently attempting to make changes to it with a high degree of passion and urgency. The telepathic guidance is very clear. It still maintains its independence. It doesn't affect others. Gao Meng lightly scratched the thin talisman paper outside his bracelet. He felt the special ink fuse with the paper. It naturally guided the interference power to transform into an even finer and more exquisite power structure. It was just as Luo Nan said, "Don't bother two masters for one thing." As the representative of the ancient talisman school of the inner world, he was already familiar with the entire process of using talismans. No one was more proficient in this path than he was. Although Papercut was an expert in this field, there was still an insurmountable gap in his cultivation realm. Look at the main point. Cat Eyes lowered her voice to an extremely low level. She hinted to Tianxi, "That fake Taoist priest is a fierce person in our area. He sells talisman paper every day. But now he's like an obedient student in front of Luo Nan. What does this mean?" "Ah," Tianxi said. She didn't know how to respond. In the end, It was Cat Eyes who broke through the paper window. This shows that the one surnamed Luo has a thick thigh that everyone wants to hug. The weak wanted to break through, and the strong wanted to become stronger. In this way, who can be more popular than the one surnamed Luo? Oh yes. The problem is, look at his thin arms and legs. How much volume can he have if he cuts off his entire thigh? Xia City, no, the people of the inner world will all want to get close to you. When the time comes, will they even give you a strand of leg hair? At this time, if Tianxi still couldn't understand Cat Eye's meaning, then her 10 years of schooling would have been wasted. She followed up on Cat Eye's words. What should I do? Risk. Even under the dark eyeshadow, Cat Eyes still emitted a sharp light that streaked across the tip of Tianxi's heart. Taking a huge risk to do something that even we ability users can't do. Tianxi really didn't understand. At this time, Gao Meng continued to describe the feeling after using the talisman paper. The internal molding is basically complete, and there is no interference. However, interference power isn't enough. We still need to cooperate to complete it. Someone, come help out. I'll do it. I'll do it. Paper Cut had already burned the talisman paper, forming a paper circle and pasting it together. Right now, he just needed to send his telepathic thoughts into it and jump into the abyss. He went with Gao Meng to forge a brand new function for the fort. But soon Gao Meng shouted, 2 people aren't enough. Cat Eyes, you go. Luo Nan's situation was special. Adding him would cause a deviation, so he immediately called out, who else is up there? Call them over. Follow Paper Cut's procedure. Once you get to the fort, just listen to Gao Meng's directions. Cat Eyes made an okay gesture and immediately contacted the personnel in charge of security. She gave clear instructions and walked forward. Her telepathic thoughts chased after Gao Meng and Paper Cut. Tianxi became a superfluous person in an instant. She didn't know what she should do. Especially half a minute later, a few ability users walked in with large strides. Everyone had their own duties. They were busy but not messy, making Tianxi look like a steak. There's probably no place for non-specialists in his field. Tianxi's mind was a jumble of thoughts. She was at a complete loss. A figure walked in front of her at this time. Senior Sister Tian. Ah, Senior Luo. Junior Luo. Tianxi didn't know how to address him, but it looked like Luo Nan didn't care too much. The smile on his face was the same as always. He wasn't that close, but he was very polite. Senior Sister, sorry to trouble you to make another trip. No, it's nothing. Tianxi didn't know why, but her heart tightened as she watched Luo Nan approach. Her many years of experience and quick-wittedness were useless. She subconsciously asked, Junior, what are you guys doing? Luo Nan didn't mind. He answered her question, I want to add a cheat to the Ring of Blood Will. I want to put the results of my recent studies into practice. The Ring of Blood Will? Tianxi obviously didn't understand. She could only do her best to reveal a smile. It sounds like a marvelous technique. Oh, it's quite simple. Luo Nan wouldn't say much to a layman like Tianxi. He was just about to change the topic when Cat Eyes just so happened to exit the fortress from behind. She stretched her back. You were the one who came up with this idea. Is there a problem? Luo Nan was very baffled. I haven't found anything yet, but there are enough people over there. I don't want to do experiments in a rigid manner, so I left. Luo Nan couldn't pay attention to Tianxi for now. He turned his head to glance at Gao Meng and the others, who were in the middle of deep experiments. He counted the number of people and made a preliminary estimate. Then he opened up the virtual work area and made a record. 5 people forming the basic functional module. There should be room for optimization. Tianxi couldn't hold back her curiosity. She focused her gaze and saw that aside from the scribbled words and numbers in the work area, there were groups of simple and complex geometrical figures. From the perspective of a professional designer, these figures undoubtedly possessed the meaning of a real structure. Though she was completely unable to understand them, Cat Eyes really didn't have the slightest interest in these things. She yawned half-truthfully. Isn't the Ring of Blood Will pretty good? You're going to toss and turn like this. Don't do something superfluous in the end. Everything depends on the results. Luo Nan didn't have absolute confidence, but he didn't hesitate in the slightest. He had gotten used to expressing his thoughts to Rue-1 during this time. Even though he had switched to cat eyes and there was still the layman Tianxi by his side, he still couldn't stop himself. He sort of sorted out his thoughts and vented. The ring of blood will can be simple, but the fortress formed from it should have a more complex structure. Actually, if there were a few more clear-headed people over there, then there would be a more detailed division of labor in the design. It would inevitably jump out of a pure defensive mode and form the effect of attack and defense as one. In the end, whether it's the ring of blood will or the fortress, they should both belong to the basic framework. It is like a development platform. According to its rules and regulations, it should form a large amount of research and development results. It should form a system and a scale of existence. Oh, what I mean is that it is like a high-rise building. There should be all sorts of supporting facilities within the building to realize different functions. Luo Nan made the last analogy out of consideration after seeing that Tianxi was completely stupefied. Tianxi's cheeks flushed a bit, and her gaze drifted. She really didn't understand the contents of Luo Nan and Cat Eye's discussion, but when she truly touched upon this mysterious and unfamiliar domain, even if it was just an insignificant corner, the trembling that came from the bottom of her heart spread throughout her entire body like an electric shock. It was like a spring dream awakened in the middle of the night. It formed a feeling of unbridled satisfaction. But emptiness and absent-mindedness were unavoidable after this satisfaction. Luo Nan didn't ponder over Tianxi's feelings. He just spoke apologetically. "Senior, I'm sorry. I haven't regained my senses yet. You came this time." Tianxi shook her head, using this opportunity to sort out her feelings. "It's nothing. It sounds quite fresh. Yeah, Junior, I came today to run errands for my teacher." Tianxi finally recovered a bit of the feeling of a senior when talking about matters of the normal world. Her body language relaxed quite a bit. "Some time ago, I took the liberty to tell Professor Pan about your matters. She really does miss you, but she hasn't seen you come over. Plus, there are all sorts of design projects at the end of the year. She doesn't have the time to spare. It's not easy for her to have some free time, so she wants to invite you to her house." "Professor Pan is inviting me to her house?" Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he quickly reacted. "It's my fault. I've troubled her with my matters." Luo Nan hesitated a bit when he spoke to this point. His eyelids drooped, and he was a bit embarrassed. "Senior, you should be able to understand. I've offended a lot of people in the inner world recently, and some of them are very tasteless. I'm worried that I'll get too close to Professor Pan, and I'll implicate her." Tianxi went, "Oh, that's it." The nightmare of Ocean Sky Cloud City flashed uncontrollably in her mind at this very moment. Her face turned a bit pale. Luo Nan saw Tianxi's reaction, and his previous judgment grew firmer. "It's absolutely true. But I can't tell Professor Pan about these things. Senior, come over. We can talk about it. We can think of an excuse, a message, so that Professor Pan won't be angry." "That's it? But Professor Pan is a very smart and very sharp person. It's not easy to hide things from her." Tianxi was unable to think of a way for a while, and her thoughts were a bit scattered. She couldn't help but ask, "Junior Nan, are you in a very dangerous situation right now?" "Hehe. Is there anyone who dares to go against Professor Luo?" Cat Eyes always loved to go against Luo Nan, and it was the same right now. Luo Nan glared at her and turned to face Tianxi. "Of course it's much better than before. I also have time to do some research. But..." Luo Nan saw the change in Tianxi's expression at this point, and he shook his head to himself. He took the opportunity to give her a reminder. "Senior, Cat Eyes can really torment people sometimes. I've been bossing her around lately, and she always wants to find a scapegoat. So you can trust her words, but you can't completely trust her. Don't let her lead you by the nose." Cat Eyes raised an eyebrow, but she just sneered. Tianxi felt a jolt on her back. Only now did she realize that her conversation with Cat Eyes had been overheard by Luo Nan. This made her a bit embarrassed, but when she thought about it from the bottom of her heart, she relaxed. She lowered her head, but the corner of her lips perked up. She sighed in self-mockery. "If my heart doesn't have a direction, how could I be led by someone?" You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel.
Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.